The reports are real. They are in. Giannis Antetokounmpo is open to a move from the Milwaukee Bucks. And while the reporting has wildly been that it'll be to Dallas or San Antonio, allegedly, Giannis prefers to stay in the East. And there's two names and two teams specifically that he has targeted: the Brooklyn Nets and the Toronto Raptors. And if you stick around, I'll tell you what the Raptors could possibly package together in a possible three-team trade to make it happen, and why the Bucks asking price might be a little too rich for what Giannis currently offers. Now, I think we've all gone to a store and seen something that we really wanted, and maybe it was on sale, maybe it was like 30, 40% off, and we thought, let me go home and let me sleep on it. Let me think about it. I don't know if I want to part with that much money, even on a 30, 40% sale. And then you come back to the store and something remarkable has happened. No longer is it 30, 40% on sale. It's actually now like 5 times the price. That's the situation that the Raptors front office has gone through with Giannis Antetokounmpo. They identified this guy way before he got into the draft. They identified him as a young teenager. Masai Ujiri, being very, very close to Giannis's family, watched this kid grow up through the ranks, come through the ranks. And unfortunately, the year that Giannis was in the draft, the Raptors didn't have their pick. They had traded it away for Kyle Lowry. The pick subsequently turned into Steven Adams. And the Raptors that year did everything imaginable that they could think of in that case to make a reasonable offer to the Bucks for that 15th overall pick. Unfortunately, and when we've all seen the clip of, Masai trying frantically, do they want this pick? Do they want that pick? No, Giannis is going at 12. Oh, he's still there at 13. We've all seen the clip. And that memory probably haunts Masai to some extent, because I have it on pretty good authority that Masai wanted to tear this thing down a long time ago. In fact, We the North was an accident. The Raptors tried to trade Kyle Lowry. Subsequently, following the move to trade Rudy Gay, they thought it would all fall apart, and then they just kind of fell ass backwards into being a contender. But it's worth noting that when the Raptors truly became a contender, like when they weren't like a fraudulent contender, they had a top 5 player. And Giannis is a top 5 player. By some people's estimates, he's the second best player in the NBA. And he is just 30 years old. He'll be 31 soon. This is a freak athlete. This is a player of Nigerian descent. This is a player of Greek origin, in a sense. Well, not origin. He is a player who is Greek. Toronto is an international market. It is a huge market. And so here's what was said. And the news was broken by Scoop B. So Brandon Scoop B Jackson is an NBA insider. I phoned up a friend of mine who covers the Chicago Bulls. He said, I've heard this stuff for the last few weeks as well. He allegedly doesn't want to move out west, maybe doesn't really want to play with Wemby. He'd prefer to go to one of a few teams in the East. And Brooklyn certainly has some assets. They have some assets they could potentially part with. Just want to read this report really quickly. It says Toronto checks several boxes: a large international market with championship pedigree, a strong medical and player development staff, and the type of executive leadership that players respect. And also, more importantly, the Raptors can offer Giannis a sense of ownership in the culture, much like Kawhi Leonard during his brief title-winning run in 2019. Now, look, it's not like the Raptors haven't tried to target Giannis before. They did this when they cleared up all that cap space. And unfortunately, at that time, Giannis chose to go back to Milwaukee. He won a championship, and he chose to go back to Milwaukee. And at that time, the situation around Giannis in Milwaukee was very different. There was a competitive core around him, and he probably felt a sense of obligation to not want to leave it. Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton. Those players are pretty much gone at this point, right? Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles was a really, really big, monumental shift in the Eastern Conference when it came to Giannis. The second that happened, I think everybody and their mother said, Giannis is probably not going to want to go through a rebuild at the age of 30, 31. He's not going to want to tear this down, wait for a year for Dame to come back. Dame is not going to be back next year. Now what happens is you're 32. You don't have a lot of young assets. It's not like, someone like Kevin Porter Jr. or Kyle Kuzma are going to miraculously morph into a second option. There isn't a lot of talent on that team, and the talent they have is aging and declining quickly. And so certainly a move to a team like Indiana, Orlando. A lot of these teams made some sense. So here's the thing. As I said, the Raptors have tried to make this move happen before, but I think this Giannis stuff has opened up a larger conversation. And it's funny because I initially set up this live to say the East is falling. The Raptors can go all in now. And then, like 10 minutes later, after I set up this live to talk about that one subject, the Giannis news breaks and we're having this different conversation. But I do want to use this conversation to talk about what the Raptors could do going forward, the pieces they have on their roster, what a deal for Giannis would even look like. Is it worth it? And most importantly, perhaps, is Scottie Barnes the centerpiece that's going the other way? Now, look, this isn't the first star that's become available. It's not. Okay. This is not the first star that's become available. Kevin Durant, in his alleged prime, was available. And at that point, Scottie was a rookie of the year, and the Raptors chose not to go for it. Damian Lillard became available. Scottie was still off limits. In every situation, Scottie has always been off limits. The Giannis situation could be a little bit different because Giannis is better than those players. No disrespect to Kevin Durant at that stage, coming off an Achilles tear. No disrespect to Damian Lillard, hell of a player. Giannis is a different class. There's also the connection to Masai, Africa basketball, building around a Nigerian super talent. Maybe the Raptors feel like they would have a 5-year window with Giannis. I think that's generous, but still, it's really hard to imagine that even 4 or 5 years from now that an athlete like this would decline so rapidly that you wouldn't have a superstar anymore. The other question here is you have more runway with Scottie. You've seen more of this unfold. There's less. He might morph into a top 10 player in his third year. We've already gone through his third year. So I'll understand that a lot of people are probably like, Scottie's never going to be as good as Giannis is today. I don't know if that's true. Actually, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if that's true. But it might be true. It might be true. And realistically, if I'm being unbiased, it probably is true. So the question and the sort of weight that you have to balance out is, how good do you actually think Scottie Barnes is going to be? Just how good do you think he's going to be? Do you think he's going to be a top 5 player? If so, you don't make this deal. Do you think he's going to be a top 10 player, relatively healthy, and that he's super committed to your organization? Now you probably still don't make the move, but you think about it. If you don't think he's going to be a top 10 player, you probably have to make this move. You probably have to make this move, right? So the Raptors have to be exceptionally high on Scottie Barnes to hold him out of this. Now, let's say you do hold him out of this. Is that an immediate deal breaker? Maybe to some extent, but not necessarily, right? So I'll give you, why am I blurry? Yeah, what's going on? Sorry, I was getting blurry for a second there. Going weirdly out of focus there. Sorry, I'm not waving at y'all. I'm trying to get myself back in focus. Does RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Emmanuel Quickly, Grady Dick, every pick we have and every swap we have, is that enough? Don't use Luka as the benchmark. You don't have a single asset as big as Luka, or as good as Luka, or as proven as Luka. And Giannis is a much better asset than Anthony Davis. He is healthier, relatively speaking. He's better. So it's going to take more than it took for Anthony Davis, but I don't think that's necessarily the benchmark here. I think what probably is the benchmark is it's probably going to take a lot more than what it took the Lakers to get Luka. That's probably the right way to look at this. So let's put together a piece. Let's put together some assets here. The money works with RJ and Emmanuel Quickly. Are the Bucks interested in those players? The money could also work with some assortment of Brandon Ingram, Emmanuel Quickly. You take back a really bad salary and Giannis, and you give them like 5 picks and like 4 swaps. Is that enough? Can a team out there beat that? It's somewhat ironic that the 2 teams that he wanted to go to, the Brooklyn Nets and the Raptors because of the cultural ties to Masai, the historic ties, the city, he loves it. You know, we've heard this for years. Giannis really likes Toronto. He enjoys Toronto. He enjoys the fact that they have a big Greek population. So The two teams that could have traded for him, they, or at least that he wanted to go to, both teams had a chance to get a top 4 pick in this year's draft. Both teams fell by 2 spots. That's the unfortunate part. Because I'll tell you right now that if the Raptors had moved up to number 2 or number 3, that pick is 100% the biggest asset going the other way. But now your number 9 pick is in play. Your number 9 pick is in play. Is Giannis going to get dealt on draft night if a particular prospect falls that the Bucks are in love with, and that's what swings them? Well, here's the problem. The Brooklyn Nets could just take that player. If there's intel that they know that, hey, let's say the Bucks call him and say, hey, we really like Trey Johnson. We love Trey Johnson. If Trey Johnson is on the board, we will be willing to accept that as a 10-15% of the package for Giannis, provided you add a whole bunch of picks and young players, et cetera, et cetera. So the problem here is if they let the Bucks and the Raptors know if this player's on the board, the Bucks pick, if they let the Nets and the Raptors know, the Nets pick 1 pick before the Raptors, they can just take that player. So there goes that theory. Giannis wants to go to the Nets for a specific reason. I think, he likes the city of Brooklyn. He has some business interests there. So, both markets are open. The Nets have more picks than the Raptors. They have more pick flexibility. They have a ton of young pieces they can dump. They have a young center like Nick Claxton. They have Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson. I think the argument from the Raptors side would be, once they get rid of those pieces and their picks, you're in a worse situation roster-wise than you were in Milwaukee. How does this help? At least here, there's a little bit more depth. The Raptors have a longer track record under Masai and Bobby of putting together a championship core. Everything that Sean Marks and his staff are doing is more or less hypothetical. Would Giannis enjoy playing for a European coach? Would that appeal to him? Does Giannis, from a distance, we all heard his comments about wanting to play more like Scottie Barnes and Paolo and whatever. Does he from a distance sort of admire the way the Raptors play basketball? Does he want to shift away from his extremely heliocentric style of basketball and move towards a more evolved style of basketball? Does he at this age want to start learning the game at a deeper level? Darko can help, but so can Jordy. It's weird that the Nets and Raptors are sort of pitted against each other in the Giannis sweepstakes, if you will, in this scenario, because the teams are so similar. The difference, of course, is the Raptors have Scottie Barnes and the Nets don't. The Nets don't have a single asset as good as Scottie Barnes. They already dumped that asset, or at least even Mikal Bridges was not an asset as good as Scottie Barnes. I assure you, GMs feel very differently about Scottie Barnes than average fans. Getting a 23-year-old former All-Star as a centerpiece deal for Giannis would be a huge, huge get for the Bucks. Scottie is typically the type of player that is traded in tandem with a whole bunch of other pieces. I think the question, if you want to ask as a Raptor fan, is, let's say you do manage to get the Bucks to say yes to a deal that doesn't include Scottie Barnes. Okay, so now you've gutted the roster, and what you're left with is 2 players who can't space the floor, who probably have a lot of redundant skill sets, one of whom is granted a much better athlete and a much better player than the other. But does Scottie and Giannis even work? Is this something that you're willing to go all in on? Is this a type of small forward, power forward duo that you want to put? You don't have the requisite pieces around this to even make this work. You don't have a Miles Turner. You don't have, the stretch big. The team that realistically, in my opinion, should probably be all over this is Indiana. They should trade Jarris Walker, Andrew Nemhard, Pascal Siakam, and a boatload of picks to make this happen. If Giannis is willing to go to Indiana, that to me is the obvious place. Playing with a player like Tyrese Halliburton, playing with, whatever is left of their core, Aaron Nesmith, Miles Turner, etc. This would be the best chance to compete. The Bucks are already showing they can compete with Pascal. You know what a big difference is to go from Pascal to Giannis? It's a jump of like 4 times the player. So maybe he doesn't want to be an Indy. That's true. Maybe, a lifetime so far, well, half a life of Milwaukee is enough. Small market, middle America type of teams for him. I don't want to call Indiana and Milwaukee middle America, but you get my drift. They're not Brooklyn. They're not Toronto. So if Giannis wants to go to a major city in the East, it's really New York and Toronto. Barring that, it's Miami. Okay, Giannis to Miami. How does that look? Do they have the assets? Bam Adebayo. I don't think that's necessarily it. If you trade Bam Adebayo, who's Giannis playing with? Khalil Ware and Jaime Jaquez? So it's a kind of a messy situation. And I think what it's probably going to take is for the Raptors to make the trade for Giannis if they can make it with, future assets, the current number 9 pick. RJ Barrett would be a centerpiece in the deal going away. And Grady Dick, naturally, you might have to part with something that you really don't want to part with, like a Jacoby Walter. You may have to part with, an exorbitant number of draft picks and pick swaps. And you're really signing up for like 8 years of not having control over your picks. Like you're going all in. You make this deal, you're going all in. But if you do that, then those picks have to be terrible, which means you have to be all in, which means you have to have the plan to put the stretch big and the requisite pieces around him. I'll tell you one player that probably is going nowhere if you get Giannis, and that's Emmanuel Quickly. Probably not the piece that's going the other way. But then, do the Bucks want Jakob Poeltl? Okay, so if it's Jakob, RJ, Grady, and every pick you own, including the number 9 pick, is that even enough? Again, we're going in circles here. Is there a team out there that can beat that offer for Giannis? Yeah, of course. There are so many teams out there that can beat that offer. But as it goes with superstars, if he tells you that he doesn't want to go to your team, that's a ticking time bomb too. He doesn't have a super long contract, man. So, he signed up for the next few years. I don't remember exactly what his contract is, but it does kind of lead into that situation where you'd be trading for a player who's asked you not to trade for him. So typically stars tend to be able to choose where they go. Right? I'll throw you another variable in this very messy situation. I don't trust the Bucks at all. The Bucks suck. They traded Jrue Holiday, who's an NBA champion with them and a really good player, and didn't even let him know. They let him find out from the TV. So to have that organization running this, they traded Chris Middleton to Washington. Think Chris Middleton at this stage in his career wanted to go to Washington? Probably not. You don't think Chris Middleton is a better player than Kyle Kuzma? This is an organization that has shown they'll dump just about anything and everything. They don't care. They don't care. So maybe Giannis says, I want to go to Brooklyn and Toronto. And they say, tough shit, we're sending you to Charlotte. We want LaMelo Ball. I wouldn't put anything past the Milwaukee Bucks ownership. I hate that organization. So all of this to say, hey, there are so many. Okay. Noble Venom with the super chat here. Appreciate you, man. Feel like this Giannis speculation is a waste. He's San Antonio bound. They'll get all the desired assets, and he gets to play with the brightest young star in the game and an all-star point guard. Appreciate you chiming in. But if Giannis doesn't want to go west, if Giannis doesn't want to compete in the West, and for good reason, right? Once the San Antonio Spurs, if let's just say they open up the coffers and let's just say they offer De'Aaron Fox plus Dylan Harper, yeah, that kills your offer. That kills your offer, right? But now Giannis and Wemby are battling in the West with OKC and Denver and Minnesota, and their point guard is Stephon Castle, who cannot shoot. They don't have an optimal roster to make this happen either. They really don't. And if you think Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper and a bunch of future picks is a better offer, you're right. But you have to deplete all your depth to make it happen too. To make the salaries work, you'll trade Harrison Barnes, probably Devin Vassell, probably Keldon Johnson. Okay, is that a contender in the West? It's not. The reason I say this, I started this live was to open up the conversation that the East might be a little bit more wide open than we've been thinking about. So let's talk about that too. Appreciate the super chat, Noble Venom, as always. Jason Tatum just tore his Achilles. The Boston Celtics were sold. There is a very good reason to believe that the Boston Celtics could be playing their last game of the season tonight. Although I have a streaking suspicion that they're not going to lose tonight, but they're going to lose at some point. They're not winning a championship without Jason Tatum, I don't think. That seems hard to do with, where they are health-wise, where JB is. Jaylen Brown's hurt, right now. Kristaps Porzingis is sick. Sam Hauser is out. They would need all those players to play very, very well for them to compensate for the lack of Jason Tatum. This is a deep team. This is a good team. This is an NBA champion. You don't count them out. But assuming they are the most expensive roster in NBA history and they're about to get bounced before the Eastern Conference Finals, that is not acceptable for that ownership group that is eating a huge luxury tax bill, is completely capped out at the second apron, has zero roster flexibility, and is, by the way, aging fast. Al Horford is old. Kristaps Porzingis is getting there. Jaylen Brown is approaching 30. I think he's 29, 28. Like, he's not young. These aren't young kids anymore. That's why they're paid what they're paid. And I don't think Jaylen Brown's an asset. I'm going to be real with you. I don't think Jaylen Brown's a top 25 player. I don't think he's a top 30 player. I don't think he's a top 35 player. And he's being paid like he's a top 10 player. That's not an asset that's going to net you a ton. The Boston Celtics could be looking to blow it up. They could be looking to part out pieces. And none of their pieces are cheap. Drew Holiday is a great player. He is not cheap. Not in today's CBA. He's not cheap. You're stuck. You're stuck. And your superstar, your one and true only superstar, just tore his Achilles. And he is 26, 27 years old, Jason Tatum, a true Iron Man. He is going to be rehabbing for the next 14 to 15 months. He is going to come back next season, at which point you'll be an even more expensive team. At which point you'll have another year where you didn't win a championship. At which point you'll have another year of eating like a $500 million tax bill. You can't possibly sustain this. No organization is signing up to lose this much money for a non-championship team. In fact, I would have argued had they won the championship this year, they probably still would have parted them out in the summer. They have some good deals. They have some good young players, young-ish players, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser. I mean, if that's what counts as young. They don't have a lot of high upside lottery talents. They don't have a Jonathan Kuminga or a Franz Wagner or even a Trey Murphy waiting on the wings, ready to emerge. No, this is a team that's been trying to compete and contend, and there's a price for that. The Raptors know that. The Raptors fans know that. But sometimes when you go into these windows, sometimes you just get depleted of your young assets, and that's where the Boston Celtics are. So count the Boston Celtics out as a team that I am genuinely terrified of next year. I'm not saying the Raptors have beat them. I'm saying they're not terrifying anybody right now. Okay. What about the Cleveland Cavaliers? Donovan Mitchell approaching 30. They are a very expensive team as well. Ty Jerome will want to get paid at some point. Did he just cost himself the bag? I have no idea. They're a really expensive team as well. Darius Garland is expensive. I don't think they looked good in the playoffs. I think they got exposed. I don't care about injuries. I just think that team looked soft. So let's count them as a maybe. Let's count them as a team that's a little bit scary, but not so scary that you don't contend. Not so scary that you're like, oh, we got to wait for them. This is not OKC. This is not OKC. This is not Minnesota. None of these teams are scaring me to the level that those teams in the West scare me. Okay. Orlando, that's a young upstart team. I respect them. I think they have a good young core, good young nucleus. Still can't shoot. And I have no idea what's going on with Franz Wagner's jump shot. And I have no idea if Jalen Suggs is ever going to be healthy. And I have no idea what they're doing with the center position. And they don't have any high draft picks this year. So again, what's going on? Jett Howard is a bust. Caleb Houston needs to get paid. What is Tristan da Silva? I don't know. Is Anthony Black redundant? Would they have been better off going with Cason Wallace or even Grady Dick at this point? I have no idea. But all I'm saying is that's a roster with some question marks, and certainly not a roster you should be scared of. Detroit is not a roster you should be scared of. It's a roster you should respect. It's not a roster you should be scared of. The Knicks are a roster you should respect. A very expensive one that is capped out, one that has no draft picks left, one that has no depth, one that cannot sustain even one major injury. If Touchwood, OG, Mikal Bridges, Cat, one of these guys, Jalen Brunson, any one of them get injured, you're done. You're toast. They are on the margins. They're not going to win a championship this year because of that. We saw it last night with Denver. You play Jokic into the ground, and he has no gas in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sitting, resting in the beginning of the fourth quarter. Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, all coming off the bench, giving you meaningful minutes, the sustainable depth. You need depth, you need stars. Very difficult in today's modern CBA to build a team that is deep enough to compete, deep enough to weather injuries, but also has a star. So You don't want to play whack-a-mole with your contention window. You don't want to satisfy one window or satisfy one criteria and cut off the other criteria, right? You need flexibility. You need to be able to pivot, which is what draft picks are for. You need depth. That's to be able to sustain injuries, foul trouble, a cold shooter. Lou Dort went cold in game 3, game 4. Lou Dort went a little bit cold. He couldn't buy a shot. So what happens? Alex Caruso comes in, makes shots. Cason Wallace comes in, makes shots. That's why you have depth. That's why you have depth. Maybe, certain players are struggling. You want to go a little bit bigger. Jalen Williams, come on in. J. Will. That's why you have depth. That's why you build a roster from 1 to 15, not from 1 to 6. Not from 1 to 6. You don't have versatility. You just don't. The deepest teams playing right now are the ones that are going to have a chance to win a championship. Indiana, not real championship contenders. And certainly a team that we should talk about being afraid of or not afraid of. I'm not afraid of them, for the record. Minnesota, right? A team that has legit NBA players that don't play for them on a nightly basis. That's depth. Terrence Shannon, potentially Rob Dillingham, potentially Josh Minot, potentially, there's a lot of players on that team that are pretty decent players. Joe Ingles. I mean, they have players. If they were to sustain an injury, they could weather it about as well as the Thunder could, honestly. And then you have the Thunder, just a marvel of team building, just great. A true testament to scouting well, drafting well, building well, acquiring well, and being patient. The Thunder did not throw away everything for a win now move around Shea 3 years ago. They waited for the title window to open, and what they said was, we want to build a championship contender that has a 6 to 7, 8 year window. You're not going to build a 15-year window realistically. That's probably not going to happen. But really, the theory here is as follows. You want to give yourself as many cracks, real cracks, at the championship as possible. The best thing, you want to say, I prefer one championship over 10 runs. You can't guarantee a championship, just like you can't guarantee a first overall pick. Just like you can't guarantee your first overall pick won't tear his Achilles on the first day. Just like you can't guarantee that Chet Holmgren, one of the most dominant college defenders of all time, won't have a Liz Frank injury and will be out for the entire first season. You can't guarantee these things. Just like you can't guarantee that the most dominant college freshman, probably of our lifetime, Zion Williamson, will not be what he has become. Just like you cannot guarantee that the next LeBron James in Ben Simmons. Remember Colin Cowherd? We're good. We're good, LeBron. Come on. You can go. We're good. We got Ben Simmons. Yeah. Okay. We got Ben Simmons. LeBron's career is literally going to last longer than Ben Simmons. Go figure. Can't guarantee this. So what you can say is, I want to give myself 10 shots. It's just like the lottery. It's just like buying lottery balls. The whole thing works on probability. You say, give me a star at 8. I say, give me star upside at 8. There is a difference between those two statements. You say, Cooper Flagg's going to be all NBA. I say, Cooper Flagg has a 13% chance to be all NBA. There is a difference. Don't speak in absolutes. The OKC Thunder are not guaranteed to win a championship. They've done everything right, though. They're the youngest team in the league, and they are possibly one win away from going to the Western Conference Finals. They have won games during this run that they're not supposed to win. They have done everything right. The OKC Thunder have done almost everything right. I won't say everything. Almost everything right. I still believe they should have traded for Cam Johnson, but nevertheless, I'll die on that hill. When you have a chance, you go for it. But not at the cost of cutting 4 years off your window. So I think if you're the Raptors, maybe you need to ask yourself, what is our window? When is our window? And when do we want this to open? How quickly do we want this to open? And how wide do we want to open it? We want to just crack it open a little bit. We want to let some air in. We want to let some bugs in. We want to let some fruit flies in. Or we want to smash this window wide open and just go for it. Because Giannis is not your only solution, by the way. It's not your only solution. He's not your only option here. Kevin Durant is still an option. I mean, he's older. A lot cheaper, though. Devin Booker might be an option. Darko Rajakovic has a good relationship with him. Y'all don't want to talk about all the things the Raptors have done right over the last 13 years to change their image with stars. Y'all don't want to talk about how differently an organization like Toronto, the Toronto Raptors, is viewed by star players because you're brainwashed by puckhead media that tells you nobody wants to come here. That's not true. It's not true. It is not true. I guarantee you, all things equal, if every single player, if you had to poll 450 players and say, rank the team that you want to draft you, or rank the team that you want to go to, that you would sign with if you didn't have a contract, from 1 to 30, the Raptors are not 30 unless you are completely like some sort of xenophobic freak who just hates Canada. If you're like a Trump supporter or something, maybe then Toronto is 30 for you. For most teams, for most players, Toronto would be firmly top 7 for everybody. Top 7, top 8. It's there. For some players, Toronto might be 1. For some, it might be 8. That's the range. You're not Indiana. You're not OKC. You're not San Antonio. You're not these, Toronto is a different level of city, man. Y'all live here. You should know that. Have some pride. So now we have this idea that stars don't want to come here, but that's just not true. You don't know that. The modern star grew up listening to Drake. The modern star understands Toronto as a very different idea than their father. And the modern star can see that this organization is run competently. I'm telling you, I'm going to actually switch this over to draft talk for like 2 minutes because I really want to talk about Carter Bryant a little bit. So I was talking to an anonymous source. Because apparently, you start talking about a particular player enough, and I've talked about Carter Bryant very publicly many times, gave him a huge segment on the panel yesterday, glowing endorsements. I want to support this kid. I think he's a really good one. So you start talking about this kid a lot, and suddenly people start to reach out to you who've covered this kid, know this kid, etc. And suddenly your knowledge base builds up, and once in a while they give you a little tidbit. So everything that I've learned about Carter is that at his next stage, where he goes, they want development to be a big part of it. They want to end up on a team that has a track record for development, good culture, work ethic, sound people. They want to have good people in the organization. Toronto fits the bill, doesn't it? And you know what? If I'm an agent, I already know this because I have clients who've played against this team, know this team, have, signed with this team, been treated well by this team. So the word travels. Toronto is a good organization. They develop you well. They're fair with you. They tell you the truth. They don't trade you randomly without communicating it to you. They don't lowball you when it comes up for free agency. They won't do to you what the Warriors are doing to Jonathan Kuminga, basically fucking with his free agency value so they can sign him for lower. No, Toronto will give you a chance to go exhibit your skills so that you can at least get the biggest bag possible. Masai Ujiri is a good person. Darko Rajakovic is a good person. This team plays together. They have a good vibe. They have a good culture. They have good people. They're not selfish. There's actually some opportunity here because the young pieces are maybe a few years away. So if you're a veteran piece or an older player, you could actually come here and start. You could contribute meaningfully. This is a very appealing place to be. And then there's the other side of the equation, because for every, it takes 2 to tango, right? Well, okay, we want win now pieces. Let's just say we want to open up the window. Let's just say we don't want to crack it open a little bit. Let's say we want to smash a hole in it. We want to say we're willing to be like a 47-win team next year, and we're willing to put some pieces in place right now that can actually help us compete at the next level, who've been there, who've done that, who've been to the playoffs, who've done some good shit in the playoffs. Maybe even if, they're not like the most hype pieces, but legit rotation guys. Your Michael Beasley's. So I didn't say Michael Beasley, Malik Beasley. Sorry. Michael Beasley ain't coming here. Malik Beasley's, your Tim Hardaway Jr.'s. Well, aren't there a whole bunch of teams that want to get rid of winning players and winning pieces just like that because they want to tank for next year's draft? Isn't that the same thing that just happened this year? Isn't that why Mark Williams is being dealt to the Lakers? Isn't that why PJ Washington got dealt to the Mavericks? Isn't that why Denny Avdia got shipped off from Washington? These are all serviceable players. They all got dumped for nothing. So the question that you have is, okay, forget Giannis for a second. Is there like a legitimate center on one of these bad teams that we could just get for not very much? Well, now comes the second part of that. What are you giving up? You don't have contracts. There's no more Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk here. Every piece that makes significant money on your team is either a high lottery pick like Grady, or it's like a core piece. So what you would have to do here, let's just say you're not high on anybody with the number 9 pick, is you would package number 9 and probably Ochai or something for a significant upgrade. You'd have to package like Grady, Ochai, and like number 9, and you would get like what would be the type of player you would have to get for that type of deal? I mean, you might have to add a little bit more salary. I just don't know where you make up the salary, but I'm trying to think like, no, it's not Cam Johnson, right? A little bit higher level than Cam Johnson. Because if you're giving up 9 plus Ochai plus Grady, like you're gonna get like an impact starting power forward. Like you're getting a player on the level of Brandon Ingram if you're giving up 3 pieces, right? I mean, granted, I don't know how people feel about Grady, and I don't know how people feel about the number 9 pick in this draft, but I do know that in the past, 8, 9 type of picks in strong drafts have commanded a huge premium. So you take what would inevitably be 2 kids and a young player next year, and you convert it into an actual impact player right now. Think not current DeJounte Murray, but pre-injury DeJounte Murray on that level. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, in that range. Herb Jones, I think Herb Jones would probably be like it. That around that type of player. That type of player might be available, man. Would you trade Grady Dick and Ochai Agbaji for Herb Jones? Would the Pelicans make that deal? I don't know. But you would get one of the premier defenders in the league who's a little bit older than those players, and you would convert 2 assets for 1, at which point you can keep your number 9 pick. I don't know. Maybe it'll take a future first. My point is, you do have your picks. You do have 39 this year to go and get a meaningful end of bench guy, and you could open this thing up. I think it comes down to how good do you think Scottie is and is going to be? How good do you think Emmanuel Quickly can get? What are you picking at number 9? Is it a player who can actually play for you right now and actually fill one of those gaps on your team, right? Don't rule out a rookie playing. There are some rookies playing even right now. Okay, Quentin Post is playing. He's an older rookie, but he is playing, right? There are some young players who are contributing. Chet is technically in his 2nd season. He is 21. Okay, Cason Wallace is in his 2nd season. He is 21. These are players who are playing meaningful minutes and playing well. The league is younger. Not OKC young, but the league is younger. The league has gone younger. Deuce McBride's not super old, right? Andrew Nembhard. He's in his 3rd year. Is he not? He's in his 3rd year, yeah. Andrew Nembhard's in his 3rd year. Ben Matherin's in his 3rd year. These are all guys who are playing meaningful minutes on teams that are competing right now, right? So you do have young players who are playing. So maybe you draft a player who you think is 2 years away instead of a player that's 5 years away. Maybe you draft a player who has high adaptability as a role player. Again, like Carter Bryant, who's almost 20 years old, will be 20 years old around the start of the season. He is born November 26th, so we share a birthday, which is pretty cool. And, he's physically ready. I think Carter is very physically ready to guard at the NBA level. So yeah, he's going to have a really simple role. Hit some threes and guard. Boom. You have officially replaced Ochai Agbaji with a slightly bigger player who does a lot of the same shit as Ochai Agbaji, but has the potential to be much, much more than Ochai Agbaji, who got better all year last year. Maybe you take Rasheer Fleming. Maybe you take Kaman Malawach and just plug that backup center spot if he's there. I don't know, man. I'll tell you one player you're probably not going to take, Derek Queen. Probably not going to take Derek Queen. Derek Queen tested horribly. Oh my God. One of the worst athletic testings I've seen in my life. The body weight, the body fat percentage, the vertical jump, the agility, all subpar. I think he dropped his stock majorly. He also measured in a little bit shorter than I was expecting. So all of that being said, the point is really, do the Raptors owe it to themselves to open up the window right now? How good do you think Scottie Barnes can be? The other factor in this is how healthy and how good do you think Brandon Ingram is? I haven't talked about trading RJ Barrett here. I haven't. It's certainly on the table, but I haven't talked about it because he is extension eligible this summer, and based on if they sign him to an extension or not, probably going to, it's going to show us what they think. Sell the top with a $15 super chat. Appreciate you, man. Wow, Giannis and BI on the same team. This could be very intriguing, but you can explain how good the Raptors could be if the trade occurred. That's a great question. I mean, we turn back to it for a second. I alluded to it earlier that I don't think Giannis is a perfect basketball player, and it's not as easy to build around Giannis as one might think. He is extremely heliocentric. He is an extremely high usage player. Does not shoot the free throws well, does not shoot well from three. The mid-range shot was encouraging this year, but pairing Giannis with Brandon Ingram forces Brandon Ingram into Chris Middleton territory, which means he has to take more threes. You cannot cramp the paint when you have a Giannis Antetokounmpo. You need shooters. You need Damian Lillard. So, okay, Emmanuel Quickley is not Damian Lillard, but he's a shooter. So let's say IQ stays. But if Scottie stays, that's already a player that's not very good with Giannis, at least offensively. Defensively, though, now we're talking. Giannis playing the 5, Scottie playing the 4, and BI playing the 3 is one of the biggest, longest front courts in NBA history. It is truly a cheat code. Giannis has a reported 7'5" wingspan. Scottie's like 7'3", 7'4", 7'4", and BI 7'3". That is truly huge. No one will score ever. The Raptors were already a top 4 defense for the last 44 games of the season without Giannis. So what would happen if you exchange Giannis for, I don't know, Jakob Poeltl? Now, it's worth noting, the Raptors kind of use Jakob Poeltl in the same area of the floor that Giannis would dominate, mid-post to the paint. Except the difference is he's a way better defender, a way better athlete, a way better transition athlete. Does Giannis give Scottie the type of outlet that he's always wanted in transition, the type of live wire athlete? Does Darko become the type of coach that can actually motivate Giannis to be a different type of player? Can he motivate him to be a better screener and a better cutter? How many projects you want to take on at once? And in a world where you are holding on to Scottie, BI, and Giannis and Emmanuel Quickley, do you even have a roster around them? Have you given up everything? That probably wasn't even enough. I mean, I'm being honest. RJ Barrett, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shed. I mean, come on, man. This is not a realistic package for. You're gonna have to include one of Scottie or Ingram. You'd have to, right? Yeah, like the Bucks are a small market team. They're not going to market their franchise around, hey, come to the RJ Barrett show. Tickets will be $4. RJ Barrett is worth significantly more to the Raptors than he's worth to any other team because he's a Toronto kid. He's a homegrown legend. Okay. He's Team Canada basketball. He doesn't hold that cachet in the Milwaukee market. In Milwaukee, he's just another guy. So maybe Grady would appeal to them. I think Grady would have to go the other way. The irony of this, of course, is Grady is the exact type of player you need with Giannis. Grady and Jacoby going the other way sucks because those are the types of players you need with Giannis. Now your deep rotation guys like, Ochai, that's exactly what you need next to Giannis. Ironically, you already have a great roster for Giannis. The problem is it takes Scottie Barnes. If you swap Scottie for Giannis, honestly, the roster makes sense. I hate to say it, Scottie's my favorite player. I wouldn't do it. I'll make it clear as day. No chance in hell if I'm the Toronto Raptors front office, they call, we want Scottie Barnes, number 9, and a couple picks. I say no. But Masai might not say no. Because you actually, in the process of building a roster for Scottie, you have inadvertently also built a pretty decent roster for Giannis. The only swap here being Scottie is probably more capable from 3. I mean, it's not by much, and probably extends to be a much better out of paint player overall. But Giannis made major strides as a mid-range shooter this year. And the truth is that, again, in the process of building around Scottie, have you not actually also done a pretty decent job of building a roster around Giannis? With the exception of probably Jakob Poeltl. I think you would need to swap Jakob Poeltl for like a Naz Reid. And then you have it. Swap Scottie for Giannis. Swap Jakob for, Naz Reid. Not saying that, I'm not saying the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to help you make that swap. You're going to have to do it in free agency, or I don't know, trade some picks whatever picks you have left and add it to Jakob and go get yourself, a Miles Turner and a sign and trade. I don't know what it would take, man. Honestly, you need a stretch big next to Giannis. It's the only way I've ever seen it work. Or you need to convince Giannis to play the center, which is something he's almost always been reluctant to do, but maybe he'd be willing to do it now that he's a little bit older. I think you also have to factor in that Giannis is a little bit injury prone, man. He's been injured a lot over the last few years, and his injuries seem to happen at all the worst times. So again, me personally, I don't do this. I don't do this at all. The major point of this live for me is, do the Raptors do something? Should they do something? Because right now, you have these future assets, but you don't have a guarantee. Like, I'll tell you something else that worked in their favor. Cooper Flag went to the West. Dylan Harper went to the West. The top two picks, look at how many disastrous things have happened in the Eastern Conference. Joel Embiid may be medically retired by this time next year. We don't know that. He was talking about taking a year off, doing this, doing that, surgery. We don't know what's happening with Joel Embiid. What I do know is that's not a stable franchise, and that's not a stable star player. Tyrese Maxey took a huge step back this year. I still think he's a hell of a player, right? The Jason Tatum injury, what does he come back as, right? Damian Lillard, he's 36, man. His career may effectively be over. He's going to be a role player when he comes back. People don't want to hear that right now, but that's probably what he's going to be. Damian Lillard is already in rapid regression. No one was talking about Dame as a top 5 point guard anymore. Very few people were. And when he comes back, he's going to be a top 15 point guard, because 2 more years will be tacked on to his life. At that point, he'll have a ramp up. And Dame is a phenomenally hard worker. And if someone can come back from that, but he's also an undersized guard. People talk about the 2 things that really, it sucks coming back from Achilles: if you're small and if you're old. Those are the 2 things that really suck. Kobe was, at the time of his Achilles injury, and granted, this is many, many years ago, but Kobe was so much better than Dame was today. I would argue Kobe at the time of his injury was better than Jason Tatum was today. Jason Tatum's been a wonky jump shooter for the last few years, very inconsistent. Add in the fact that he's also 27, comes back when he's 29 or something. Maybe Jason Tatum's not a top 5 player anymore after this. Maybe he's a top 12 player, top 15 player. That changes the equation dramatically. So again, for the Raptors, who might have been eyeing 2026, 2027, 2028 and saying, like, let's ramp this up slowly. Let's try to compete for a playoff spot next year. See if we can get to the dance. Let's see if we can lose in the first round. We're not going to make any drastic moves to shore up our obvious roster holes, like backup point guard and, backup center. We're going to let Jamal Shed and Jonathan Mobo run with it, or a rookie run with it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't do that. Maybe instead of that thinking, you say, wait a second. We have Brandon Ingram, who has been to the playoffs many times. We have RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, who've both been to the playoffs. We have Jakob Poeltl, who's had plenty of deep playoff runs. Not as a centerpiece, not as a starter, but he's been to the playoffs. He's been to the play-in. He's played in big games. This is not a rookie. We have Scottie Barnes, who has playoff experience. So our core 5 players all have significant playoff experience, have been to the dance before. This is not their first rodeo. This is not like the Orlando Magic or the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons had Jalen Duren going to the playoffs for the first time, Jaden Ivey, well, granted he didn't play, Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson. They had all these players experiencing the playoffs for the first time, and they were all key rotation guys. Orlando, when they went to the playoffs last year, who was experiencing the playoffs for the first time? Pretty much everyone, except for Jonathan Isaac and Wendell Carter. Like most of their young players, Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, they've never been to the playoffs before. So that experience that you often associate with young teams, hang on here. Okay, RJ Barrett is going into his 7th season. This is not a spring chicken. Okay, he might be young, might be 24, 25 years old, but he's not like a spring chicken here. Ochai Agbaji, granted, will be going into his first playoffs, and Grady and Jacoby, whatever. These are also really mature kids. You've also been drafting like really like significant guys. And let's not even downplay the fact that, Jamal Shed was the winningest player in college basketball. If there's any rookie who can easily transition to that level of intensity, it's the guy who plays that intense all the fucking time. Right? Like, the playoffs are not magic. Okay. You're not going to another planet to play in a different atmosphere. Like, it's just more intensity. It's more scrutiny. It's It tests your basketball knowledge. It tests your discipline. Oh, you mean all the things the Raptors are already building up under Darko Rajakovic? You mean all that intensity that the Raptors play with? Yeah, like they're the Raptors are the last team in the world that's going to be shell shocked by physicality. One of the most physical teams in the NBA. Yeah, I'm not scared. Brandon Ingram had a really rough go in his last playoff run. Emmanuel Quickley had a really rough go in their last playoff run. But I trust Emmanuel Quickley in the playoffs. And I trust that Brandon Ingram, his first playoff showing was awesome. So I trust him. I do trust him to show up in big games. But the most important thing is here, they'll both be in different contexts. They'll both be in a different role. And I'm not saying the Raptors should aim for a championship next year. I'm just saying, don't relegate yourself to a first round exit. Don't relegate yourself to a play-in. Why don't you just go for it? Who are you scared of at this point? Who are you scared of? I'm not saying you're going to be favorites. I'm not saying you're going to be a top 4 team. I'm not saying you're competing for home court. I'm saying, who are you scared of? One rolled ankle. Look at the playoffs this year, man. Who the hell had the Boston Celtics going out like this? Granted, they haven't gone out yet, but who had the Cleveland Cavaliers going out like this? So what happened? Injuries. You get to the dance, anything can happen. All I want to know is, do you have a chance? Is there a world in which a few things go your way, a few things don't go their way, and you win? Or is the gap just so insurmountable that everything goes wrong for you, or everything goes wrong for them, everything goes right for you, and you still can't win? Are you just there, or are you? Do you have a chance? You know, like Orlando this year. Orlando didn't tear it down because they had a whole bunch of injuries. They could have waved the white flag. They could have said, shit, Suggs is out, Franz is injured. Suggs is out for the season. Franz is injured. Paolo's injured. Paolo's, having a really tough go when he was coming back from that fracture that he had. We've lost Mo Wagner for the season. Our team can't hit a shot to save their fucking life. Maybe we shouldn't go to the playoffs this year. They still went. Detroit, I mean, realistically, they didn't have a real shot, did they? I was rooting for them. I was pulling for them. But they wanted to start the clock, and they believed. They believed that, hey, man, if a few things go right for us, we could actually go to the second round. What this playoffs in the East is at least showing me is it can happen. The Indiana Pacers were probably picked by most people to be out in the first round last year. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Nobody had them beating the Cavaliers, man. I don't care. Maybe some super Indiana fans had them beating the Cavaliers this year. So what went wrong? A lot of things went wrong for the Cavaliers, man. Injuries went wrong for the Cavaliers. A lot of meltdowns. Shit happens. When that intensity steps up, shit happens. And you know what? Raptor fans probably have a really, really tough taste in their mouth from basically getting booted from the play-in by a little screaming girl. But the truth is, it's a completely different team, different mental makeup, really different. And honestly, I feel like this is a tough team. I feel like this is a together team. And you know what? Watching these playoff games, I gotta tell you, some shit comes to me as I'm watching these games, because I'm very predictive in my watching. Not a sports better, nothing like that. But one thing that I like to do is at every interval of the game, and this is just something that I do for my own development, I tick up or down based on which team is about to do well in the next 5 minutes. So specifically, like, let's say at the 3-minute mark, this thing happens where a player gets in a tussle with another player, and I see that situation, and then I try to make a predictive analysis in terms of where the scoreboard will go from that event. And then maybe another event happens, like, I don't know, a huge half court heave that goes in, or maybe a big turnover in the open court, or maybe a disagreement breaks out between a coach and a referee. And I always look at these things as swing factors of momentum. And one thing you realize consistently, basketball is mental. Basketball is mental. It's about growing people. Like, the growth of your people will show up in those big moments. How many teams do we see that go on these like 7-8 minute stretches that they can't score? How many teams have we seen hold a 20-point lead and then lose a 20-point lead? How many teams have we seen up 6 with like 2 minutes to go and blow the game? We saw a team that was up 7 with a minute to go and blow the game. That was the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? When the Indiana Pacers came back, 2 offensive rebounds. What happened? What happened in that moment was mental. That was not physical. Aaron Nesmith didn't learn how to fly. He got 2 offensive rebounds and he drew a charge. That's mental toughness. That comes down from focus, experience, growth. These are things that you have to work on with players. You know what I appreciate about the Raptors? Perhaps a lot, actually. How much emphasis has gone from Darko Rajakovic and Jama Malalela to growing these young men as people. How much emphasis has gone into rounding them out as human beings. How much of a role their sports psychology department plays behind the scenes. Talk to someone if you know someone about it. It's fantastic. You listen to Paige Beckers talk about her championship run with UConn this year. Listen to her talk about how big a role sports psychology played into it. In these big moments, people freeze. And then crazy things happen. You know what happens? Donovan Mitchell goes to the line with 3 free throws and misses 1, 2, and 3. Chris Webber travels in the Final Four with a championship on the line, goes and then calls a timeout that he doesn't have. This is sports psychology in a nutshell. This is like, again, this is understanding. You are not thinking all the time. Like even the sheer idea of like, okay, so we've been having this conversation on the panel about like this player playing too much or this player playing too much. Why, like did LeBron and Luka playing the whole second half, did that exhaust them? Well, clearly, obviously it did, but they lost. Should that be done? Jokic played like the entire fourth quarter yesterday. He was completely gassed. He was like holding his knees. Do you realize like your brain needs oxygen, right? Like, you know that? Here's something really fantastic for those of you who like to travel. Do you know that when you are at a higher altitude that your mind is different? Like when you're on an airplane, your mind is different. Like you can unlock certain things that maybe you can't unlock at this altitude. Do you know what a huge part like oxygen plays to your brain? Do you know how like, when you're tired, they say don't drive when you're tired. It's like being drunk. Don't text and drive. Don't be tired and drive. Don't drive sleep deprived. Being extremely sleep deprived is like the equivalent of being drunk in some scenarios. Yes, mistakes happen when you're super sleepy, but being exhausted beyond belief. Try playing basketball when you're super exhausted. Everything becomes harder. Making free throws becomes harder. Seeing things becomes harder. Processing things becomes harder. You're just fighting against yourself. So in those moments, like your mind comes into extreme focus, like how sharp you are, how good your habits are, how automatic your thinking is, how healthy your brain is, all of these things. And more importantly, how do you self-regulate those emotions? What happens when you're up 20, right? Let's say you enter the fourth quarter and you're up 20 and the other team comes out and they hit a 3 and it's 17 and you come back and you hit like a layup and you think you got it, but they block it. And it was like wide open. Remember that Donovan Mitchell play where he bricked it and Miles Turner blocked it? Like a play like that can fuck with your head so hard because you start getting superstitious and you start leaning into all the psychology of, uh-oh, here it comes. That bad thing that I don't want to happen is about to happen. And you don't know how to frame yourself out of it. And that's where sports psychology comes in. You have to reset your mind in that moment. You have to think of the positive outcome. You have to rechannel your focus. You can't be thinking about the last play. What happens when you get called for a foul and it's your 4th foul and you just started the 3rd quarter? Are you sitting there on the bench spewing? You're losing focus, man. You're losing all your focus. So this is what I say. The playoffs are a great teacher, but you don't have to learn all your lessons in the playoffs. I think the Raptors know this. I think they're trying to teach these guys these situations. Like, again, it's a simulation, right? We're not saying they're on the airplane. I'm saying they're in the fucking flight simulator. Being down 20 is a good test. Once in a while, you should try it. You should simulate it in practice. Be down 20 and go play. Be up 20 is also a good test. How do you hold a lead? How do you close out? These are the things that young teams, typically teams that have never been to the playoffs, don't know how to do. And this is why typically people say that you got to go through it 3-4 times before you actually break through. So again, do the Raptors take a real chance? Do they take like a real shot at it this year and just see where it rolls? See where it rolls, man. You are not that far off. I believe that Scottie Barnes is damn good. I'm gonna show you how good. Hang on. I feed your Scottie fandom with some stats. Hang on. Just check this out. This is what Scottie Barnes averaged against the players. Against the teams that are still playing in the playoffs. Against Indiana, he's averaged 35 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds. Against Golden State, he's averaged 26 points, 6 assists, and 9 rebounds. Against Denver, he's averaged 21 points, 9 assists, 12 rebounds. And by the way, he got injured in that game. Against New York, he's averaged 25 and 4. Against Minnesota, he's averaged 18 and a half, 6 and 5.5. Against Boston, he's averaged 18 and a half, 5.7 assists, and 6.3 rebounds. And against OKC, these were like two of the worst games of his career, two of the worst games of his season, but 16.5, 6 assists, and 8.5 rebounds. So my overall point here is I think this guy's good. I had an entire conversation with this guy on Twitter Spaces the other day who said, I think Scottie's like a 4th or 5th option or maybe a fringe starter. I think that's batshit crazy. I honestly think like y'all need to get your heads checked if you think that's the case. No, I think Scottie's damn good. And you know what? Y'all really under stress how much when you're winning, your focus changes has to matter. Look, there's like different ways, right? There's different ways to look at different situations and how you look at a particular event or situation and how you color it. So, for instance, the person that I spoke to, Raps fan, he was just like, we've only ever seen Scottie Barnes ball out for like 3 months. Okay, well, I mean, like, sure. I mean, I guess he didn't win Rookie of the Year balling out. Cool, nice to know. But nevertheless, he's referring to the stretch to start his 3rd season where he became an All Star, and he said, and it was before he got paid. See, that's how these people do this, right? They say he wants to get paid, right? So they say that's why he balled out. Well, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I think what happened was that Scottie Barnes was told very clearly that we are thinking of pulling this thing apart if it doesn't work. And he saw a teammate like OG and he saw a teammate like Pascal, and he wanted to stay with his team, and he wanted to stay with Precious, and he wanted to stay with these guys and Gary. He didn't want his team to break up. So he was told that winning was the priority, that if you win enough, we're not going to tear this apart. I think he was told that, and he went out and he hooped. I think he hooped. I think the dude was like fucking trying to win, and he was doing a great job, and he was averaging 24, 10, and 8 or something or 20, 24, 9, and 8 on 3-point shooting that would blow your mind if you remember. It was like 41% from 3 through December. And then they traded OG anyway because the team started to lose, and OG got traded, and the whole production went away right there. Over. Done. Started shooting half as well from 3. So you can take that and you can do with it what you may. You may say, oh, well, aren't you a professional basketball player? Shouldn't you put up your best effort even when winning isn't a huge priority? When you trade OG away and you basically gut your defense, you're showing me that winning is not a priority for you. When you start shopping Pascal and you take back a pick heavy package, you're showing me winning is not a package for you. Winning is not important for you. When you trade Dennis Schroeder away for nothing, you trade him away for a player that won't play for you and not even get any picks back, you're showing me that winning is not the priority. And when you pivot your entire focus towards youth and development, the player at the top of that, the player that you're talking to about that, he got the memo too. You're not some fucking genius who's privy to information that Scottie Barnes is not privy to. They went to Scottie and said, listen, bro, this shit ain't working. We're not winning. Okay? We're not winning. So what we want to do is for the next year and a half, we want to develop you, we want to develop your teammates. We're not going to be super competitive right away, but trust us, and we're going to make this work around you. No one was happier about the Brandon Ingram trade than Scottie Barnes. You, sitting at home, might be thinking, is Scottie worried about losing his top space in the pecking order of offense? Hell no. Scottie saw his organization move towards winning for the first time in years. After gutting apart his best teammates, they just gave him the best player he's played with probably in his life. Brandon Ingram, that good. So, and he wants to be here. So this dude, this demon right here, this one, looking at you, this one right here. Hey, Scottie, what's up? This guy is on a team that is talking about winning for the first time in 2 years. This guy is going to come out and not be thinking about development, not be thinking about, oh, I got to take 8 jump shots, 10 jump shots from this side or that side. He's going to be thinking of straight winning. All this guy ever wanted to do was win. I've told y'all this from his rookie season. He just wants to win. And when winning has been on the table, i.e., his rookie season, i.e., the playoffs, i.e., the play-in, i.e., fourth quarter comebacks, he's always down to hoop. It's when winning doesn't matter that he fucking goes for his 2-point, 6-point games. So yeah, you could argue that's important. You could say, hey man, you need to cut out these 8-point games against Charlotte. Okay, cool. Would I rather a player who I know is going to show up in the big moments, i.e., the player who puts up the big stats against the good teams? Or do I want a player who pads his stats against Charlotte? Do I want Fred VanVleet or want Pascal? Do I want Fred VanVleet or do I want Scottie Barnes? I don't give a shit about your stats, bro. I'm not a parlay watcher. I don't care about that stuff. What I care is that you are honed in on winning. Everybody in this organization coming into this summer, yo, look how long this summer is, man. The Raptors have been off for months. Okay. Grady hasn't played a basketball game since, like, I want to say January, February, like whenever he stopped playing. This has been all strength and conditioning with Jacoby, with all these guys. They all had ample time. Yo, everything about last year was geared towards this year. This team is amped. They are walking into training camp with, like, Scottie had to be told, don't say championship. Y'all realize that? Like that whole Mike Gates situation, right before the Mike Gates situation, y'all have y'all heard about that? Like they had to basically tell him, say playoffs, don't say championship. But yo, this guy went on his stream the other day. Scottie went on his stream and he said, like, first of all, a couple things. Number one, he said guaranteed playoffs. So you take that to the bank and stamp it. Take it to the bank, put it in a deposit box. It'll collect interest. That take is guaranteed. Scottie Barnes said we're going to the playoffs unless there's some disastrous injuries on this team and someone, breaks their leg for the entire season or some shit like that. We ain't tanking next year. We're going for it. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I thought it was hilarious that someone kept bringing up Cancun in his chat. And what did he do? He banned them. He said, get out of here. He seemed genuinely pissed about it too. Good. Losing should hurt. When losing stops hurting, stop playing. Losing is supposed to suck. It's supposed to suck. But it's sometimes a part of winning. Sometimes you have to go through a year like this to get to where you want to go through. But I'm just saying, this is a 30-win team. Vegas will set the over under at 35. That's not who this team is. That's not who this team is. This is not a team that cares about rebuilding or any of that bullshit. It's a team that tolerated rebuilding because that was the context they were put in based on the timeline. The player who comes in to this team this year, number 9 pick, provided it's not traded, they're going to have to compete for their minutes. There will be no free opportunity on this team. This team is all about winning right now. They're all about development, but they're all about winning. But winning will come first next year. I am positive about that. In fact, I am so positive about that. They're not waiting. The only question at this point, if I'm a Raptor fan, if I'm the Raptors myself, is how complete a punch do I want to throw through this window? What am I willing to give to accelerate this growth? Because getting bounced in the play-in is progress. Going to a game 5 in the first round and getting dusted by Indiana or Cleveland compared to where you were last year, that's progress. That's progress. Taking to a game 7, like taking Cleveland to a game 7 the way Orlando did last year, that I think that could be progress that we'll all be like, yeah, that's my team. Let's do that. That's great. But why stop there? Why stop there? Why do we have such low ambitions? Oh, believe in yourselves. Believe in the city. Come on, man. Why are the ambitions so low? The results may be low, but why do the expectations have to be so low? As much as you want to push a team to a game 7 and get a participation trophy, what about pushing a team in the second round? What about pushing for the conference finals? What about being one shot away from making the finals? What about losing 4-0 in the finals? Has a team ever gone from the lottery to the finals, Rob? It'll never happen. Literally happened last year. Okay, you don't have Kyrie and you don't have Luka. You have Scottie and you have BI. They're not the same level of talent. I get it. But this ain't the West. This is the East. This is the depleted East. So you know what? If I'm the Raptors internally and I'm not in charge, and y'all can thank God for that, because I'll take Carter Bryant at number 9. And that's me. I'm probably looking at every sorry dumpster franchise from Utah to Charlotte to possibly Brooklyn to possibly Washington to Atlanta. Every team, I'm taking a straw poll. Who wants to be bad next year? Cool. We don't want to be bad next year. We want to be good next year. What on your roster would you like to give us for whatever, whatever young pieces? What do you want to give us to upgrade our roster and make yourself younger? I'm willing to do that at this point. I'm not willing to sell the future. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not willing to sell the future, but I am willing to explore opportunities to make the present a lot better. Those opportunities include players like Cameron Johnson and Nick Claxton, but those opportunities also include swapping out maybe a middling 3 prospects for a great prospect. That includes moving up in the draft, includes potentially moving down in the draft and acquiring another role player. It really, I'm not certain about it. I'll give you a very, very brief view into just how I'm thinking about this draft now that the Raptors have fallen to 9, and then we'll end it. Also, I want to do something because I'm not sure that PC did it yesterday, but I felt very, very bad about it. So I just want to, I'm not Player's Choice. I'm not. But I am a part of Player's Choice, and I was part of the show in which this happened. And unfortunately, the stream ended early yesterday. So I do want to, I'll get to our super chats, but I also want to get to PC's super chats. Hang on, let me remove that for a second. Let me just get to our super chat first. Gregory with a $10 super chat. There's no text, but I assume this means I support you, and thank you for that. Again, Noble Venom and sell the top. Very, very nice of you guys to send that. There were 8 super chats. So basically, to context, I'm on the panel. I'm on the panel tomorrow. Y'all should join in. I was on the panel yesterday. We talked about the draft. If you want my thoughts on the draft, go check out Cooper Flag, to Dallas, that panel episode. I talked a lot on that panel episode. I think I did a really, really good job on that panel. So it's one of my better episodes. Definitely go check it out if you'd like. But unfortunately, that stream ended abruptly. It ended because one member, who shall remain nameless, accidentally ended the stream. And I don't remember, or I don't know if Ron remembered to read those super chats. And I feel bad because every single time people send super chats, I always want those super chats to be read because those people spent time. And because I am a part of PC in the sense that I work for PC, then I feel like technically those super chats were also supporting me. So as the right thing to do, I screenshotted the super chats and I just want to read them out for the people who sent them. So Energized said, from the Sixers' point of view, if trading Embiid is on the cards, you would potentially pick Malawach and go back a few spots at the same time. And this was in reference to what the Sixers should do with the number 3 pick. I think that might be a really good idea. I will actually tell you that I'm souring a little bit on Kaman Malawach, and trust me, it's not coping, and I'll get into that right after this. Russell Clark said, Jason Tatum started off great, but he missed his last 4 or 5 threes straight. I think he shot them out of the game, shooting 16 threes in less than 3 quarters. Of course, shout outs to Big Deuce. Jason Tatum diagnosed with a right Achilles tear. That was really devastating news. But yes, he was on pace to have one of his better games. He was probably getting tired just from how many shots he had taken and what a defensive load he was playing. I think it was one of the most complete games I've ever seen from him, including that 53-point game that he had. I think he was headed for like 50, but I do think the Knicks would have won that game. So yeah, he just said, outside of the Celtics backcourt, whose backcourt in the playoffs right now is talented enough to defend Brunson and Bridges? I'll wait. OKC. OKC. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, well, come on, man. OKC, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and his band of merry defenders. I firmly believe that. Okay, the next batch of super chats, hang on one second, is this one. Classic said JT is an Iron Man. Even if it's an Achilles tear, he's still going to play next season. I can see Tatum having an Adrian Peterson recovery. That is possible. You know, genetics play a huge part in it. Age plays a huge part in it. The fact that Tatum is younger, advanced in modern science, he got the surgery right away. There's a chance he's back for next year's playoffs. I have my doubts, but if anyone can come back from this in 8 months, it's probably him. DBZ Stay said Drake Powell's best perimeter defender in the draft. And watch out, he will be the steal of the draft. And let's give Queen from Maryland some hype. I like Drake Powell and Derek Queen, but I have some reservations about just how high I'm willing to get on those players. I haven't done my full film study on Drake Powell or Cedric Howard yet. A lot of people are very excited about Cedric Howard. People are comparing him to Kawhi Leonard. I'd say pump the brakes on that shit. But I've seen him mocked as high as the lottery, and I think that's very interesting. EJ said, all these country bumpkins like Jordan hating on the Knicks, y'all sick. NY basketball is back. I am very curious to hear what y'all think after this video goes live about who you got coming out of the East. You know, is it the Knicks potentially, the Celtics? Can the Celtics storm back after being down 3-1? If the Celtics are cooked between the Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, who you got? I'm very curious about that. It's certainly not something we've talked about a lot. Big shout outs to the Indiana Pacers and Pascal Siakam for, you know, securing a berth to the Eastern Conference Finals. I just want to say something. This is a funny stat that I read today. Pascal Siakam been alive for 31 years. Over his lifetime, he has been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 times. The Philadelphia 76ers have been to the Eastern Conference Finals over Pascal's life once. Pascal better than them, the entire Sixers organization. That's fantastic. Okay. I mean, it's worth noting Tyrese Halliburton literally just went twice. So you could say that about every player on the Indiana Pacers has been to the Eastern Conference Finals more in their lifetime than the Sixers have been in their lifetime. That's messed up. Okay, Mitch did this against Cleveland 2 years ago. Embiid raged against him last year. Mars is sleeping. Yeah, I think Mitchell Robinson has been sort of my unsung hero of the Knicks this year. I think he's been fantastic. The double big lineup for the New York Knicks has really worked. I'm very curious to see how that double big lineup is going to work against maybe a faster team like Indiana. I think what makes Indiana successful is they have like these 4 to 5 ball handlers on the court at all times, whether you're looking at Obi Toppin or Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner. They just have like a lot of spacing and not a lot of lumbering. Even the quote unquote lumbering big that you would look at as maybe looks like a lumbering big is Thomas Bryant. He's stretching the floor out. He's hitting threes. So, man, you know, like as much as I say I'm not afraid of Indiana, I'm certainly not overlooking Indiana. Like Indiana is a very good team. They're a very good team. I was sleeping on them really hard. I think they still lack that A1 superstar. I think Siakam does a good enough job at times to masquerade as one for a quarter here, a quarter there. Tyrese Halliburton has his moments, but there ain't no tier 1 superstar in the world that could have 4 points in a game, man. It's just not. Like, it just doesn't happen to real superstars. It's not happening to Jokic and Shea, etc. So, like, again, you think of Halliburton more in the archetype of Jason Kidd. I say Kidd was a better passer and a better defender. You think of Halliburton more in the archetype of his own archetype. I tell you, it's not an archetype that I'm going to trust until it wins a championship. I think there's a really, really good chance that Indiana does make the finals, but I think they get smoked when they get there. That's just my perspective on it. In terms of Knicks, Celtics, I just have this feeling that the Knicks are not going to lose on their home court. Sorry, the Celtics are not about to lose in their home court. Like, it's just a feeling that I have that after your teammate gets injured and has this really devastating injury, I think it really kind of tests your professionalism. And, you know, your fan base is devastated. You're devastated. Everyone's picking against you. Half the world thinks you're about to lose this game and just throw it out. And I just feel like that team, they won an NBA championship last year. There must be some pride in that organization. And I have a feeling that they're going to come out and they're going to hit so hard. Like, I feel like they're fighting. Not only are they literally fighting for their playoff lives at home, they're also doing so in honor of their fallen brother, you know, in Jason Tatum. So I feel like the emotions will either be too high or too low for Boston, but I certainly am not writing them off in this game. But yeah, it's going to be over when it goes back to New York, or worst case, it's going to be over when it goes back to Boston. Or shit, maybe it's not. You know, again, until I see the Boston Celtics fall, I am not counting this team out. I tell you, I think the Knicks are the better team right now. I started to feel that way, after game 2 that, Boston was vulnerable in this series, but I'm not willing to shut the door on them just because Jason Tatum is out. He is their best player. Kristaps Porzingis is, sick. Sam Hauser is hurt and presumably out. All these things can be true at the same time, and yet I'm still telling you they have a chance. They have a chance. New York is not invincible. New York can go cold. Mikal Bridges has his moments. Big Purr has his moments. Closeout games are hard. On the road, it's even harder. Totally. Definitely not over. But you know what? The Cleveland Cavaliers yesterday, they inspired me, man. When they came out, and they punched so hard. But I got to tell you, something really weird happened in that game. To those of you who watched it, shout outs. Something really weird happened in that game. The Pacers were down 18 to 19 points at one point, and they didn't stop playing. They kept pushing. They kept pushing. And then Cleveland made 3 mistakes in a row. I feel it was like a stupid shot. They got blocked at the rim. They made another mistake. There was a turnover. It was just a string of errors. And I started to feel the momentum shift. So one of the tests that I like to do when I'm watching these games, again, as a sort of, learning experience for myself is, what's the score and what does the score feel like, right? So the score might be 20 to 40, but the feeling is it's 80 to 10. You know what I mean? There's sometimes where it's 20 to 40 and you're just it feels like 36-24, Sometimes it's 40 to 20 and it feels like 40 to 20. And sometimes it's 40 to 20 and it's a 20-point lead and it feels like it's a 50-point lead. When Indiana was down 19, I wrote, it feels like they're down 4. When Indiana went up by 6, I wrote, it feels like they're up 25. And this kept happening. That's what momentum is in basketball. I don't know how to explain it, but there's something very the thrust of momentum, and it's everything in basketball. Momentum is the humans. These are 10 humans on a basketball court. And when things start to go wrong and body language starts to sink, the hilarious thing about Max Strus messaging the entire team before the game saying, if you don't believe, don't show up. And then he goes 0 for 9. I thought that was kind of funny. Max Strus is not a stranger to going 0 for in a clinch game. He's done it with the Miami Heat. Everybody knows this, but it's crazy to be, talking like you're Michael Jordan in that moment. But you know what? I'm not even trying to troll Max Strus, whatever. He's a professional athlete. I appreciate it. But sometimes the tough talk and the puffy chest and the shit talking is actually not really confidence. It's actually insecurity. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you're trying to psych yourself. This is where I say the sports psychology element really works into it. You got to listen to these players before the game. You got to study. I think I made this entire channel on studying Fred VanVleet's body language and shit. And people went crazy on me for it. But when somebody asks you, do you believe that you can come back from this series? And your first thought is to look down, touch your nose, roll, look the wrong way and be like, yeah, of course. Absolutely we can. What kind of question is that? That's not confidence. That's insecurity. And that's not honesty. That's deception. Right. So again, when you start to see those huddles, when you see the timeout and the coach is talking and the player is somewhere else, you're like, that player is checked out. That player is somewhere else. There is real evidence. I promise you, if you could hook up every scanning thought on a brain, some teams do check out of a series, man. They're just we're not coming back. It's over. They lose belief. They lose focus. It's over. Indiana didn't lose focus, so credit to them. Denver, OKC, and then I'll quickly touch on Minnesota, Golden State. Denver, OKC was one of the best basketball games I've watched in my life, bar none. You got to watch 2 superstars go back and forth. You got to watch my man Lou Dort. Awesome. After that tough stinker that he had, man, I went on a rant of epic proportions on the panel when Ox said, whatever he said. He might have been justified in saying oh, they got Lou Dort's bum ass out of there, whatever. They benched Lou Dort. That's what saved the game, etc. He's a fake shooter, let real shooters shoot, whatever. And I was just man, walking into yesterday, I'm I don't care if OKC wins or loses, but man, please, Lord, don't let Lou have 2 bad games. Because I really like Lou Dort. I love Lou Dort. Y'all don't even understand. He's one of my favorite role players in the league. Plus, he's Canadian, so it's just the support is very strong for Lou Dort. Don't slander Lou Dort in front of me. And to see him struggle the way he did for the first few quarters, and to see OKC down and all the allegations that they never win clutch games, they can't win clutch games, even though they already won a clutch game. But they can't close out late. They only blow teams out. They don't have a lot of experience. The youngest team in the league. Blah 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 blah. Okay, cool. So all of that being said, they were down. They looked like they were out, and then what happened? Lou Dort, 1-3. Lou Dort, another 3. Lou Dort dives. Momentum shifted. I wrote down when they were down, I think 8, I wrote -15. When Lou Dort dove for that play, I think they were still down like 3 or 4, if I recall correctly. I can't remember. I have to look at my notes. I wrote +6. So those, the old adage, 1 point is not 1 point, 3 points are not 3 points. No, these are not 3 points. Sometimes you dive for a loose ball and you change the game for your entire team. This is why basketball is so much deeper than the fucking box score. Because anyways, let me just say, please someone remind me in the comments, basketball is deeper than the box score is my final point. Because there's something about Carter Bryant that I just want to mention. I'm dancing over a lot of topics today, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and then putting up with it. Overall, OKC takes a commanding 3-2 lead. But just like I said, I would not count out the Boston Celtics tonight. I'm not counting out the Denver Nuggets at home. But I will say this. I don't know if Denver has anything left. I don't know. When you give up a lead the way they did, when you go cold the way they did, when Michael Porter Jr. doesn't show up and goes 1 for 7, when Russell Westbrook airballs everything in sight, right? Rudy the Boxer, this will be your final warning. This will be your first and your last warning. If you say 51st State again, you're getting booted so fucking fast, you don't even understand. Okay? So keep that shit out of here. We are not the 51st State. We are Canada, a great country, and presumably, thinking where you're coming from, a considerably better country than your country. Okay? So what am I saying? I don't know if they have anything left. There were already rumors from that Ramona Shelburne article on Russell Westbrook, which, Russell Westbrook's wife was very upset about it. But what happened? He did it again. Where are we at? Because politics isn't everything if you get to the highest level. No, it's not. Wasn't here. When are the Raptors playing? Are they playing tonight? Oh, you should have told me that you were stupid. I'm sorry. I held you to a higher standard. You've been banned. My bad. You don't know that lottery teams don't play in the playoffs. You might be really stupid. So there you go. Rudy the Boxer, go sleep. Go touch grass. Anyways, so packed up. All right. So what I'm saying, I don't know if Denver has it in them to come back, man. That report from Ramona Shelburne was damning. Talked about how Aaron Gordon confronted Russell Westbrook in the locker room, how, maybe there's some stuff going on behind the scenes, behind those teams. I'm sure Jokic is very, very frustrated. He is so gassed right now, man. He's so gassed. He's so fucking tired. He is holding his knees, and he's playing the next 6 minutes anyway. This organization is just running this guy into the ground. He's 30 years old. Yes, he's the best player in the league, but man, this is a tough load and a tough ask. And he's played some of the best defense I've seen from him ever. The exertion is real. And this is a player who played deep into the playoffs last year, played for Team Serbia this summer. You are asking for a career-ending injury at this point if you keep doing this to this guy. I'm telling you, you can think he's durable, he's ground-bound, he's not super twitchy. The level of exhaustion, he is a human being. Okay, so I get it, it's the playoffs. Suck it up, play. You're getting paid millions of dollars. Okay, cool. You want to ruin your franchise? Go ahead and ruin your franchise. I don't think this guy has anything left. I'm just being honest. Jokic may come out and put up 30 points, but he's not giving you another game like he gave you with 1 day rest. Like that performance felt like it took everything out of him. And there's a reason why you sometimes see these games go, this team wins, then the next team wins, this team wins, the next team wins, because these real like bursts of energy, like playoff intensity basketball. Like I say this to someone who just talked to somebody about this a few days ago who has like some real insight into this. They say something like 1 minute of playoff intensity basketball is like 12 minutes of regular season basketball or something to that equation. Like if you play in a real game 7, the level of exertion mentally and emotionally and all of that is like it's a 12-1 or 6-1 ratio. I can't remember what he said. And in the fourth quarter, even more so, when those possessions get really tight and those picks get really physical, with the way the NBA is allowing teams to play in the playoffs, it is exhausting. It is emotionally exhausting, physically exhausting. Teams are breaking down, players are breaking down, players are missing jump shots. We're seeing teams go 6-7 minutes without shooting. And these same players that can't make open jump shots are the same players that in the offseason, when they're fresh and they're rested, these players could hit 100 of those same shots in an open gym in a row. So that's the point, right? Jokic has insane conditioning. He's Serbian. Yeah, Jokic is very, very well conditioned, but he is still a human being, and playing 41 minutes when you're, this age and playing defense when you're not used to playing this level of defense is a lot. Like it's a lot to ask him. He's basically playing like 75 minutes in these games relative to like, if you want to think of it like, I don't know, speed, right? Gas, whatever. If you want to think of it like, how many gallons of fuel do you have on an airplane? Well, going super fast, being higher, lower, whether you're on the runway, whether you're sitting in a holding pattern, all of these things are going to impact your fuel consumption. Just like going super fast in a car is going to burn your fuel faster. So, again, I think the intensity of playoff basketball is probably exhausted the Denver Nuggets. I would not be shocked if they come out in the next game and get smacked by like 60 points or 40 points. I wouldn't be shocked at all. Nothing will surprise me at this point, because losing the way they lost was such an emotional letdown. And I also wouldn't be surprised if they bounce back and they're really resilient and they fight for their lives and the moment is too big for OKC and they force a game 7. I'm not surprised about either one of those outcomes, but I'm just saying, like, if they come out and they completely suck, I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised. And it'll be at home. So, losing by 20, 30 points at home will be really embarrassing for Denver. And, I'm sure they'll spend the entire fourth quarter looking at Jokic and Aaron Gordon and Russell Westbrook looking all stoic and, with towels over their heads. But that's the reality of it. The final series, of course, is the Warriors and the Wolves. And, I've been really rooting for the Wolves. Love Anthony Edwards. Think he's great. Uh, Man, Julius Randle's really caught me off guard, huh? Wasn't a huge fan of Julius Randle last year. Thought the Knicks did really, really well. But I got to tell you, I was the one person that I know that said I thought the Wolves won that trade. I thought Dante DiVincenzo was good enough that he could make up for the gap between Cat and Julius Randle. Julius Randle making up for the gap all by himself. He's making up the gap all by himself. I could argue Julius Randle's been better in the playoffs so far than Karl-Anthony Towns, and then you just got Dante DiVincenzo and a lot of money for free. So great trade by Tim Conley and great trade by the Minnesota Timberwolves. They seem to be winning a lot of their trades lately. They're a good organization. And it seems to me, at least, that they're probably going to win this series tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Butler puts on his Batman cape, dusts it off, pulls out the box from under his bed and says, "Hey, I guess I got to be Batman." But it almost feels like Jimmy is a very different player at this stage of his career. He's still a great player. I still think he's relatively close to a max player, but I just don't think he's a superstar at this point, right? And that playoff Jimmy that we've been waiting for just hasn't emerged. But I do think, as somebody who came out and said the Raptors should trade for Jonathan Kuminga when he was at an all-time low, I feel a little bit vindicated because Jonathan Kuminga has looked like their best player, or at least their best scorer the last few games. I mean, he's shooting fucking ridiculous percentages, right? And Phoenix Plays That said, "Are you calling him washed?" Nah, I'm not calling him washed at all. No. He's not washed. Troy Knight said, Scottie said Julius Randle is one of his hardest covers in the league. He is. Julius is fucking physical as hell. And I think there aren't a lot of players that bump you and you go back and they bump you again and you go back again. Like typically there's a bit of a tug of war with it. With Julius Randle, he's just physically exhausting, right? I can imagine players like him. This is like in 2K when you have that like brick wall tag, that brick wall badge where it's like physically draining to play against you. I'm not saying Julius Randle is Shaquille O'Neal, but in terms of like just brute strength, he's definitely closer to the Paul Millsap, Zach Randolph mold, right? Just where it's physically hard. It's hard on your body to keep taking those bumps, right? Young Lightskin said, I stand on the fact that Kuminga was essentially filtered out of the rotation because he was playing for a contract. They did the same thing with Clay, messes with the Deuce mental. I 100% agree with you. Gilbert Arenas, shout outs to Gil. He's been on this the entire time. He's just been saying this like, yo, man, like they're doing Kuminga dirty. They're doing Kuminga dirty. And, you got to feel for Kuminga too, right? From all accounts, really, really hard worker, really good dude, just maybe overestimated his importance to the Warriors. And they said, go kick rocks, right? So I think the Warriors are finding out right now they really need him. I think, sometimes you win a bunch of championships and you start to feel yourself a little bit too much, like Steve Kerr, like you buy into your own genius a little bit. It's kind of like those people who, I don't know, they go to Vegas and they win like $15,000 and they fucking figure they think they hacked the machine. You know what I mean? Like they're just like, I'll never lose again. That's the same idiot that goes to Vegas the next time with $50,000 and comes out with like, like missing a couple of fingers because they couldn't pay their fucking debt. It's just ego. I agree with you. Ego is the word. Phoenix plays that saying ego is the word. Yeah, it is. So is like hubris, right? Is false confidence. Yeah, all of it. Because you gotta, and again, if you're not gonna be humble, life will humble your ass. I firmly believe that, right? Like it's like you win a couple fights, you think you can box, right? Until you bump into somebody who can actually fight, and then you get killed. Like it's good to understand that. Yeah, I won those championships, but I did have like the most stacked roster in the league. And yeah, I did build a championship culture, but there was a coach in Mark Jackson who kind of built it for me. You know what I mean? When people win championships, like almost like you can't say shit to them. Like I question Nick Nurse openly as a coach. Openly, people are like, you can't question a champion. Why not? Why not? Championships are won as organizations. Organizations win championships, right? An entire organization won that championship. When I said, Masai Ujiri, what the fuck are you doing trading for Jakob Poeltl? But you can't question the champion. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can, because there's a lot of people who helped construct that championship team in the front office who ain't there anymore. And maybe those people would have vetoed that Jakob Poeltl trade, but they're not there anymore. Teresa not there anymore. Jeff Waltman not there anymore. A lot of people are not there anymore. Okay. That's what brain drain is, right? Oh, you can't question the Raptors' development. If this guy's not developing, it's because he just sucks. The Raptors are so good at developing. Yeah, not without Patrick Mutombo, and they've never really done it without Dwayne Casey, and they've never really done it without Jama. Those guys were gone. So it's like, again, with Steve Kerr, he benches Jason Tatum, he benches Tyrese Halliburton. Those are two of the best players in the league. Everyone says, yeah, but he's a championship coach. What can you say? Right? What can you say? He knows what he's doing. Those guys give up their summer to ride the bench for a gold medal that they probably don't even feel like they earned. I'm not even trying to diminish it, honestly. It's team sports. Whether you play 2 minutes or 20 minutes, you deserve a gold medal. But you get my point. It didn't help Jason Tatum's brand to be seen as an end of bench player. Like, I'm sure his agent was fucking furious. But Steve Kerr thinks he's God's gift to basketball sometimes. And he would just think like, okay, well, yeah, good job, man. You won a fucking gold medal and championships with the most stacked against the deck rosters in human history. Congrats. You know what's possible? If you give me prime Michael Jordan and prime Gary Payton and prime Shaquille O'Neal and prime Pau Gasol and pepper out reasonable role players, I'll probably win a championship as a coach. Shit, I might win a dynasty. I might win 10 in a row. If those guys never age, no one will win a championship under my watch. Only I will win championships. And then the worst thing that could happen to me will be after 10 years, I'll think I'm Red Auerbach or I'll think I'm Phil Jackson, and I won't be. You gotta know. Sometimes you're good, sometimes you're lucky. And a lot of times you're probably both. Right. So that's what I'll say about that. I think Steve Kerr has been exposed a lot throughout the years. People aren't really wise to it, don't wake up to it or whatever. But, he's a fine coach. He's a fine coach. But miss me with the Phil Jackson, all that stuff. He ain't that level of coach, right? He's a good coach. He's a good coach. I've learned a lot listening to him over the years. But yeah, there's great coaches, there's good coaches, and then there's just coaches. That's about it for me today. Thank y'all for the super chats. Appreciate y'all very much. I will be on the panel tomorrow. I don't know what the subject will be. Yeah, I do. It will probably be talking about what happened tonight's games. So we will absolutely, Phoenix plays that. I love this comment. Rick Carlisle is an elite coach. He is a great coach. I have been a huge fan of Rick Carlisle since like 2002, 2001. And watching him over the years go from Detroit, go to Dallas, go to Indiana, he has been really good at every stop. He is a very, very smart guy, and his offense is beautiful. He is winning without a superstar. People might think Siakam and Halliburton might be, close. They're not really. They're not superstars. So he's just doing something that is crazy. And if he ends up winning a championship out of this, and I don't think he will, but if he does, he really, really does deserve respect. The same type of respect, if not more respect, than you bestow upon someone like Eric Spoelstra, right? That's a good question, and that leads me to my final point. I apologize. Let me stay on this. So my thoughts on the draft, and specifically the concept of 2 points is not 2 points. That was the point that I was supposed to close on, and I will close on that. Let me show y'all something here. I posted about it. Let me just bring it up. Okay. So what the hell? Oh, here we go. So these are the 2024-2025 freshman defensive box plus minus ratings. Okay. So you have number 1, Cooper Flagg. Number 2 is Carter Bryant. Number 3, Jace Richardson. Thomas Sorber. VJ Edgecombe, Colin Murray Boyles, Derek Queen, Con Knipple, Adu Thiero. I've bracketed when their freshman year was, if I included them at all. Adu Thiero has gotten a lot better. I think it's worth noting there was another player here who got a lot better as well, which was Matisse Thybulle with the context level. Like Matisse Thybulle ended up having the highest defensive box plus minus of any player in collegiate basketball history. Down there is Kaman Malawach at plus 3.6. Certainly not bad. Plus 3.6, but not great. Kasparis Yakuchonis, Yegor Demon, Dylan Harper, Asa Newell, Jeremiah Fears, Will Riley, Trey Johnson, Liam McNeely, and at the very, very bottom, next to Liam McNeely, tied with Liam McNeely, is Ace Bailey. The context of what these numbers kind of mean: Anthony Davis plus 8.1 as a freshman, true freshman. Chet Holmgren plus 7.5. So both those numbers clear Cooper Flagg, Jaren Jackson Jr., Joel Embiid. All those numbers clear Cooper Flagg, right? The plus 6.7 is great. Ironically, Cooper Flagg had a higher offensive box plus minus than most of those players. So I think he's more of a two-way prospect, whereas with Chet and Joel, it was more of a defense first impact, right? Miles Turner at 6, Evan Mobley 5.8, Alex Caruso 4.8. Granted, not in the strongest conference. Jalen Suggs didn't play the strongest conference, but 4.6. Cason Wallace for Kentucky with plus 4.2. Scottie Barnes at Florida State plus 3.6. Bam Adebayo plus 3.6. Matisse Thybulle plus 3.1. Jared Allen plus 2.6. As I mentioned, Matisse Thybulle, that was as a freshman. By his fourth year, he was at like plus 8.9 or plus 9.1 or something. It was crazy. So this was not the only point that I was trying to make here. The point that I was trying to make, and I wonder if I posted about it. I feel like I did post about it, but then I probably posted about it on Instagram. I probably did. First thing I want to mention, Carter Bryant saying, I'm completely in. I'm completely in. This is big news for me, at least, as the resident Carter Bryant booster. Love Carter Bryant. I want to actually share with y'all what I said about Carter Bryant on the panel yesterday, in case some of y'all missed it. To those of you who are watching it again, my bad, but this is what I said about Carter on the panel yesterday. Where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? Oh, damn. Where are we at? Sorry, guys. I post a lot of shit. Here. I really like. Say something that I think Chilltown Hoops is going to really like. Carter Bryant's father is Deshane Bryant. Deshane Bryant coached Kawhi Leonard in high school. This kid grew up around the sport. His whole family are athletes, volleyball players, D1 athletes, really hardworking kid. So again, look out for this name in a few years. Y'all be telling me I'm a genius because I spotted the kid.
Are you possibly saying this because you think the Raptors are going to draft him?
I'm trying to speak this damn shit into existence, bro. Because let me tell you something. The Raptors have had the number 9 pick 3 times. Who they draft? Tracy McGrady, DeMar DeRozan, and Jakob Poeltl. All right, all 3 very productive players. One a little less productive than the other 2. I just think Carter fits very well into the Raptors' trajectory of drafting number 9 picks. I love Carter. I think he's apart from Cooper, I think he's the most impressive defender. He did things this year defensively that I had to double take. I was like, how did he get there? I don't know how he did that. He ripped centers. He ripped point guards in the open court. He's a really good shooter. And you know what I love about him? And again, this is where you get into the deeper stuff. He went to Arizona without a commitment on playing time. He didn't ask for one. He was a 5-star recruit, and he agreed that I will earn my playing time. And if you don't think that I deserve to start, don't start me. So for him to say, I am here to learn basketball, coach me. My dream is to play at Arizona. My family played at Arizona. I want to play at Arizona. You use me how you want to use me. And he took whatever role. And he had the hardest job on defense. And he just guarded his ass off. And he didn't have no ego about him. I think that all this stuff translates to him being very coachable. I promise you that the draft workouts and the pro days matter. When these general managers meet this kid, I will tell you they will fall in love with him. He is a hardworking, humble-ass kid. You would never know he was a 5-star recruit. He carries himself like a 0-star. And I'm telling you, like, the athleticism is real with this guy. He's very fluid. Maybe didn't measure out as well as I would have wanted him to, but very fluid athlete. His jumper is Jason Tatum. 100%. It is the 100% Jason Tatum package. So he's not as good as Jason Tatum as a freshman. I'll agree with that. Sure. He has a lot of creation responsibilities that maybe, his handle is not as tight, but I think he'll get there one day. I think he'll be a very, very productive starter. He actually reminds me a little bit of Tamani Kamara, actually. So Tamani Kamara comps. Here is Carter going through his lane agility work at the combine. He also measured out with a 39.5-inch vertical, max vertical, which was good for, I think, third. It was slightly below VJ Edgecombe. So I just want to say, I understand the skepticism with Carter. I've put him really, really high up here, and I've talked about him to the point where, people around him are reaching out to me, and it's been really, really cool to see, because really no one's talking about this kid that much other than people from Arizona and people from his hometown. And I believe that the panel is a pretty big platform. I maybe am doing the Raptors a great disservice by hyping up Carter as much as I am and by talking about him as much as I am, because I think I'm magnifying the spotlight on him. But I think it's for good reason. And I do think that, in this draft cycle, I think your prospect level raises as people talk about you more, dissect your game a little bit more. It's not, can he guard 2 through 4? 100% easy. Easy. He has a 8'10" and a half standing reach. He has a 7-foot wingspan. He's about 6'7" and a half in shoes, right? His standing reach is slightly lower than Jonathan Mobo and Scottie Barnes, but it's on par with certain players that are going to be drafted to play center for you, or it's like almost there. Like, I think his standing reach, if I remember correctly, his standing reach is 3 inches lower than Ulrich Shamshi. So he has high shoulders. He has a pretty small head. He's like, different basketball players are built differently. There's certain players that are all head. Pause. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, their shoulders are really low and their neck is really long and their head is really big. So it's like, yeah, you 6'8", but you might as well be 6'4". You know what I mean? And then there's certain players that are like completely shoulders and down, and they have really short necks and really small heads, and they may be 6'8", but they're basically 6'10". Yeah, that's it. Jalen Brunson, big head, exactly. So here's what I'll say about Carter, and then I'll sort of the point about 2 points is not 2 points. A lot of people, right? I don't know what it is about today's generation and the need to cook. I gotta cook. I gotta cook this guy. I gotta cook that guy. I gotta do this and I gotta do that. But people cook so often that sometimes they realize, oh wait, I should have taken some fucking cooking lessons. You know, like maybe I should have learned to read the fine print. Maybe I should have done some more research, right? Maybe you need to read a little bit. You know, you need to dissect. You can't just look at every player and be like, oh, this guy averaged 12 points per game. This guy averaged 6.6 points per game. This guy shot 28% from three. I'll tell you a player who shot 28% from three, and I project him as a pretty damn good shooter, and that's Jeremiah Fears. Watch the fucking tape. Watch the tape. Watch the jump shot. Do you think it's bad? You think he shoots like a 28% free throw shooter? Sorry, a 28% three-point shooter? Go watch him shoot free throws. Go watch the projectables. Go watch the good games. Now watch the bad games. Watch the coverage. How was the defense covering him? Were they off the move? Were they hard threes? Okay, cool. Well, now the 28% changes. The context is different. It's so different. It's the same thing with Carter Bryant. You say 6.6 points. Okay, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, what was your role? What were you asked to do? What does your coach typically, want to do with players? Were you playing with better players? Did you do what they asked you to do, bro? When you have an 8.8 box plus minus, I'm sorry, as a freshman, you had an 8.8 box plus minus. And by the way, that got better as you went on. You got to divide Carter's season into two halves and study it differently. Who he came in as was not the same player as who he left as. So again, the context. There's so many players that we've seen where they're as freshmen. Again, this is where Masai Ujiri comes in, right? When he was talking in 2013 about Giannis, what did they say? They said, we think that in a few years, we're not going to get a player this good with these picks in the future, right? I believe that was like almost a direct quote of what he said. It's the same thing with Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes was not better than Jalen Suggs when they were drafted. The analytics said Suggs was better. The eye test said Suggs was better. The question was not whether Suggs was better or Scottie was better. The question was, who do you think will be better in 3 years? And what do you have to do to get them there? Who do you think is better in 5 years? Who do you think is better in 8 years? Who do you think projects as the more important player type? Who has the lower upside? Everybody wants to say, you got to pick this guy because, he averaged 22 points per game. Okay, cool. He averaged 22 points per game. What the hell does that do for me at the next level? I'm changing sports here. I'm going from college basketball to professional basketball. It's different. Your role is going to be different. You cannot always assume that every 42% college shooter is going to become a 38% three-point shooter at the NBA level. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes it doesn't translate. Your shot doesn't translate to the deeper level. Grady was a dominant shooter in college basketball. He has not been a dominant shooter through 2 years of the NBA. Will that change? Probably. His form looks solid, right? But it might be different. And it's the same thing where, sometimes you have a player that shoots 25, 26% in college, but then boom, they become like a 42% shooter at some point. And it's just like, you gotta play the odds here. The odds of Carter Bryant being a bust are like, okay, let me just say something emotional. I'm not going to be rational when I say this. The odds of Carter being a bust is 0%. It's an injury is the only thing. This kid works entirely too hard, wants it entirely too much, loves basketball way too much to be bad at it. There's too many physical gifts here, too many mental gifts, too many spiritual gifts, too many good people around him, too much humility, too much work ethic, too much growth trajectory, too much, barring injury, for him to be a bust. So now we need to, okay, let's just, for the accounting's sake, let's give him a 1% bust tag. One of the lowest marks in the draft, by the way. There's certain players that I just don't think will bust. Cooper is the player I don't think can bust, right? Like I think he's bust proof. Carter is close. He's really close as a bust proof player. The difference between Carter and Cooper, really, it's not athletically, it's not defensively, it's the playmaking and it's the offensive upside and the star upside. If Cooper has a 10% MVP chance, Carter has a 0.01% MVP chance. If Cooper has a 15% chance to be an all-star, Carter has a 2% chance to be an all-star. But he has a really high floor. He has a really high floor. Carter's floor, in my opinion, is one of the 25 best defenders in the NBA. That's his floor. Who can shoot threes. That's a role player who's very valuable, who can probably play a role on a championship team within a couple of years. Carter has a lot of Cason Wallace in him, like bigger Cason Wallace. This is who he reminds me of. Tenacious, aggressive, humble, hardworking, reminds me of Cason Wallace. I'm not doing a one-for-one comparison between the player type. Cason's a very different player. Neither are like crazy athletes, but Carter's a very good athlete. He's a very good athlete. Carter could play like I'm telling you, there's a player playing in the playoffs right now. Like there are many players playing in the playoffs right now that are nowhere near as good as this guy defensively. He's good, man. He's really good. He really does remind me of Toumani Camara, right? Like I said it in the video. Like my 1-to-1 is Toumani Camara, Dyson Daniels. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So again, your defense and your shooting establish a floor for you as a prospect. My goal, if I'm Darko Rajakovic next year, is how do I get you on the floor? If you're Rob Dillingham right now, I want you to imagine that instead of Rob Dillingham, and I'm not saying that they should have, but I'm saying like instead of Rob Dillingham, they had drafted more of a role player with that role, right? Like let's just say instead of like a player with maybe more of a shot maker upside, instead of Rob Dillingham, they had, I mean, to be honest, they don't really need much. But let's just say instead of Rob Dillingham, they had drafted, damn it, who's a good player they could have drafted? They don't really need anyone, do they? I mean, they sometimes need a guard. Okay, instead of Rob Dillingham, could you have drafted? God damn it! I'm really starting to. I'm really struggling to find a player who could actually play for the Minnesota Timberwolves this year that they could have drafted instead of Rob Dillingham. Who? Khalil Ware? No. Damn. Can y'all help me? Who could? I'm asking you. Who could the Minnesota Timberwolves have drafted? Montes Buzelis. You think Buzelis would play for them right now? Over who? Jaden McDaniels? No. Nickeil Alexander-Walker? Probably not. I'm thinking role player type. I'll give you one. No. Jared McCain? Maybe. McCain, if he was not healthy. I could see Montes over Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Personally, I think Nickeil right now is the better player, but Montes is bigger. So maybe, like, my point is, maybe not in this draft. Oh, I'll give you one. Dalton Connect. That's funny. There we go. Dalton Connect. Dalton Connect is a guy who can at least occasionally provide some good spacing for you. Okay, let me just correct myself. Not Dalton Connect, but the theory of Dalton Connect, like what Dalton Connect was, a 23-year-old, more mature, physically more developed, bigger prospect. You know what I mean? like that type of player. Maybe that player might play ahead of Terrence Shannon. Maybe that player could give you 5 to 10 minutes of spacing when your spacing cramps up and you can't get shots off. Maybe that player plays in place of Dante DiVincenzo if he gets injured. Rob Dillingham right now is a really, really tough player to play. So that's kind of what I'm saying. Carter can get on the floor next year. Carter is not 18. He is 19 going on 20. He is not weak. He is not overzealous. He's not stupid. He is definitely not a stupid basketball player. He's not raw. Like he has a long way to go, and he may be a prospect and a project in the most literal term, but he's not stupid. You get what I'm saying? Like you don't have to teach him how to cut. You don't have to teach him how to box out. You don't have to teach him how to guard the basketball. You don't have to teach him how to relocate. You don't have to teach him how to, play defense. You just don't know. He knows what to do. You can work with him to make him a hell of a lot better. Now, that's why I would take him. I would take him and I would say, fuck the haters. I would genuinely say, fuck the haters. His jump shot is pure. He's a really good shooter. He works insanely hard. He had to tailor 2 halves last season where his progression towards the second part of the season was so much better. I talked to someone who covers Arizona Wildcats basketball who said, if he comes back next year, I think we're going back to the Final Four. I think he could be one of the top 10 players in the country next year. He's that good. I talked to another person who covers college basketball who said if he goes back to school, he could be a top 10 pick next year. Okay. He said maybe as high as top 5. Carter has that type of potential. Carter could be really great. He played a little reduced role. Talk to somebody else who covers Arizona basketball. Again, I've been reaching out to a lot of people to get my facts and sources right, who said, honestly, the gap between him and VJ Edgecombe ain't that big. Now, again, people are going to look and they're going to say, well, one guy averaged, this many points and the other guy averaged 6.5 points. How can you possibly compare these two players? You can, because again, he hit 37% of his threes. His numbers are not low because he didn't make his shots. His numbers are low because his minutes were low. It's the same thing with Scottie Barnes. You cannot say Scottie Barnes is a bum. He's averaged 11 points per game. Okay, fine. Where are the players that average 22 points per game, 23 points per game, 25 points per game in college basketball? The same season Scottie averaged 11. They're not in the league, or they're in the G League right now. So that's where I will say this matters a lot to me. This matters that you remain completely aware that the NBA game and the college game are different. Big wings like Carter, who are multi-positional, who have good jump shots, tend to translate well at the league level, provided they are focused on growth, are coachable. This fit culturally for Carter is perfect. Now that we have moved down to 9, I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. I gotta be honest with you, man. Like I had some trepidations. Like, will the Raptors be ambitious enough to take Carter Bryant at 7? Probably not. But now that we moved down to 9, I'm perfectly fine with it, man. And you know what? If it's not Carter, maybe it's come on. Maybe he falls. Although I feel like because of what their queen did at the combine, any team that was considering between those two is already picking come on. And I feel like 7-2. Like there's a lot of people out there who really, really think about the draft and they're really deep and they get confident with their picks. There's other people that are just like, if this doesn't work out, what am I going to tell my boss? 7-2 with a 7-7 wingspan feels like, hey man, I picked the big guy and he didn't work out. Like it feels like a very, very safe bet for a lot of people. And I feel like people go towards size when they don't know what to do. And, if the Raptors have both Carter and Kaman on the board at number 9, I'll tell you it's a great problem to have. And what I would tell you is at that moment, if they pick Kaman, I'll celebrate it. I'll be happy for them. But I'll have this really, really bad feeling in my stomach that they probably just made a really big mistake. That's all I'm saying. You've got to look at this guy beyond the context of 6 points per game. And you've got to look at Kaman beyond the context of 20 minutes a game. You got to look at these players as prospects. You got to look at them as people. You got to look at them as what do they believe? How do they project? Where are they in their growth cycle? What potential factors have stunted their growth? What are factors that we can fix? And what are things that we can't fix? And, with Carter, I think He's a little bit of a late bloomer when it comes to just the growth offensively. I think it's going to come, man. I really do. And, if you had looked at a freshman Kawhi Leonard and said that's going to be a future finals MVP, 2-time final MVP, people would have laughed you out of the gym. This is what scouting is. This is why the best scouts in the world get paid the big bucks. And, maybe if Carter turns into the biggest bust in the NBA and he's basically Cody Williams next year, a lot of people are going to roast me because there's no one louder on the internet about Carter Bryant than me right now. And maybe 4 years from now, when he's making an all-star team, the other thing will be true. I'll get to go back and say, I saw it. I saw it and y'all didn't see it. So I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I'm not like the last thing I ever want. And I'm gonna tell you my biggest pet peeve with draft people. My biggest pet peeve with draft people. I don't give a shit if I ask you about the draft and you just be like, I don't know, I don't watch. My biggest pet peeve with draft people is the people who keep cycling the same bullshit that they heard somebody else say. Scottie Barnes is a 0 level scorer. You watch, or you just read Sam Vecini and think Sam Vecini is God? Like, do you really know what you're talking about? What does 0 level scorer mean? Explain it to me. Like, you don't know. So this is what I'm saying. Firsthand knowledge. I mean, not firsthand knowledge, but like more dissected knowledge, more scrutinized knowledge is better knowledge. And so I say, go in blind. Go watch a Rasheer Fleming game and just put it out of the context that he's the 30th ranked player or the 20th ranked player. Go watch Mackenzie Mbako from Indiana. Go watch a couple full games of him, or even go watch 20 minutes of highlights and just forget that, he was in the G League camp, that he just got invited and that he's supposed to be undrafted. Forget about it. Just watch him. Watch him play. Study the numbers, read the analytics, find the comparables, see the measurements, and then make your own conclusion. Then maybe Mackenzie Mbako is like the 29th player on your draft board, and he's 67th on Jonathan Gavoni's board. Who cares? Go read Jonathan Gavoni's last 10 draft boards and tell me which one was accurate. None of them. You got to make your own mind up about this. I trust the Raptors to always do the right thing for themselves. This is what I always say. They didn't put into the pressure of like, oh, you got to replace Kyle with Jalen Suggs. They didn't do that. They picked the wildly unpopular player because it was the right thing to do. I think they'll do the same thing this year. I wonder if they feel about Carter Bryant the way I do. I wonder if I myself will feel about Carter the way I do a month from now, because I'll do even more research. But I really like him. I think he fits well with our culture. I really think he fits well on our team. And I think he could actually play a role next year and be like a 15-minute, 20-minute a game role player on a team that's looking to win. And you know what? Something I really appreciate about him, he really, really cares about winning too. So I think that matters to me a lot. We've got a super chat from Pepperjack. Said, not sure if you talked about this already, but what worries me about Kaman isn't the game, but the visa situation. Might have issues crossing the U.S. multiple times if he ends up on the Raps. Now, I'm pretty sure that a visa issue is not going to hold up an NBA athlete. Now, I'm speaking from ignorance on this. Okay. I'm not a visa expert. I'm not a government expert, and I probably haven't read enough about this to comment intelligently on it. So I want to thank you for your $20 super chat. What I can tell you is these are multi-billion-dollar organizations. The NBA is a multi-billion-dollar business. Kaman will most likely be a multi-millionaire who is a top 10 pick. From what I've learned through life, multi-millionaires who work for multi-billionaires typically don't have normal people problems like this. So, is it going to be an issue for South Sudanese people? Probably. Is it going to be an issue for Kaman Malawach? I would be so shocked, man. So shocked. So, I don't know. We'll see. But if Kaman is the pick, I mean, you know what? I'll root for it as hard as I can. And if he is the pick, that means the Raptors scouted him, looked over the red flags. There are red flags. With Kaman, there are red flags. Okay. I've pointed them out before. The height is a little bit scary. 7'2" typically associates with injuries very often. He's not the most fluid mover. I do worry about that. His motor is questionable at times. He goes through lulls. He goes through spells. His learning of the game is his off-ball awareness is very limited. He does not know the game. He does not understand basketball at all. I mean, I'm being very honest. You're really you have a blank page with him. He understands very basic stuff. It's not quite Ulrich Shamshay level raw, but it is raw as fuck. So the role cannot be he's going to come in and be 30 minutes a night and he's going to block every shot and grab all these rebounds. No, he's going to struggle. The physicality is going to be tough at the NBA. How's he going to deal with that? Cultural adjustment going from South Sudan to Kentucky, one thing. Going from Kentucky to Canada, another thing. How will he deal with the cultural adjustment? I'm sure there's no situation better for him than Toronto, learning from a big like Jakob Poeltl, being in an organization that has deep roots into Africa basketball, playing with Ulrich, having that sort of camaraderie. You know, the homesickness can be real. So having somebody who he already knows, who was at NBA Africa Academy, if the Raptors really, really want to pull some strings, if they want to pull some favors and push Kaman to Toronto, I wouldn't be shocked if they could make it happen. Now, as much as I sat there and said the draft is not rigged, the lottery's not rigged, and you know, you find out, by the way, that the Raptors were one number away from number one. They were one number off, guys. One number off from number one. The four number combination. So, from what I heard. So, sorry, I've lost track of what the hell I was saying. What was I saying? Am I having like an old person moment? Am I having like a 75-year-old moment where like, because I feel like sometimes you talk to 75-year-olds and they're just like, back in my day, and then they lose they lose their trail because they saw a bird out the window, and then they just forget what they're saying. So I just had one of those moments. I had a bird brain moment. My bad, guys. I've completely forgot what the hell I was saying. I was saying Masai Ujiri. What was I saying, yo? SP saying, do you think we can get Carter and Kaman? Probably not. No, I don't. The favors. There we go. So while I do say that the draft lottery was not rigged, and I firmly believe the draft lottery is not rigged, to anyone out there who wants my take on it, it's not rigged. It's not rigged, guys. But I do think sometimes draft positioning can be fixed. Yeah, I do think Bronny James to Lakers was fixed last year. I do think Ulrich to Toronto was fixed last year. I think agents push players to certain destinations all the fucking time. Kobe Bryant pushed his way to being a Laker. Okay? It happens. This shit happens. Now, the NBA is trying to dissuade this shit from happening as much as humanly possible. But I don't know if Kaman is the level of prospect who, if he tells Pelicans, I don't want to come here, I'm not going to come there, I'm not going to work out for you, I don't know if they draft him anyway. I don't know if he's that level of prospect. This is not like Steve Francis or Cade Cunningham or anything like that, where it's like, oh, So if he wants to be really fussy about it, and if his agency wants to be really fussy about it and say, we want to avoid this situation and we want to put him in Toronto where we trust the organization better. His handlers and his people also know Masai very well. His people and Masai's people are very connected. His trainer and Masai are very connected. I interviewed him last year, Joe Tuomu. So everyone in his circle knows that Toronto is a good spot for him. His agency has pushed 3 straight African prospects to Toronto. Christian Koloko, Ulrich Shamshi, and now potentially this guy. So 2 straight. My bad. The pipeline is there. If Toronto really wants him at number 9, they can just tell Brooklyn, like, bro, we're Clutch Sports. Don't fuck with us. You know what I mean? Like, just don't fuck with us. We're sorry you want our client. We don't want our client, playing with Nick Claxton, and we don't want our client playing in Brooklyn. Now, I don't think they're going to do that. Agencies are not stupid. Clutch Sports not trying to burn their bridges with Sean Marks. But the overall point here is, if a team really wants him, they can take him. But if a team is just kind of like, I don't know if we want Kaman and we want Derek Queen, well, Derek Queen's going to come work out for you and Kaman's going to reject your workout invitation. Who do you like? You know what I mean? I don't think a lot of teams are going to be super comfortable with him. I'm also comfortable saying that sometimes agents will put out false information about a player. They'll put out a false measurement. They'll put out a false story. they'll put out a false rumor the day before the draft that he has some sort of illness or something like that, or he has this visa issue, and people get scared and blah, blah, blah. So look, man, like you can I can't say like if you wanted to take Cooper and tank his value to bring him to Toronto, you can't do that. If you wanted to do it with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, you probably can't do that. If you wanted to do it with VJ Edgecombe, you probably can't do that. But if you desperately and strategically try to tank Kaman's value to bring him to the Raptors, you could probably do it. You could probably do it with a couple of favors. You can do it. So don't lose hope. If you're one of those Kaman or bust people, don't lose hope. But I got to tell you, watching him over the year, I've gone through ebbs and flows with him. Right? There's been moments where I've been like, I would take him third. There's been moments where I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'd take him seventh. Then there's been moments where I'm like, is he a top 10 pick? You know what I mean? I've had my moments, right? I think he's going to be serviceable. I think he's going to be really good. I question whether he's going to be a star. I really do, man. I don't know, and I don't know how far he is away from that. So yeah, if you wake me up in 5 years and say, Rob, guess what? Kaman Malowich is second best player in this draft. Totally not surprised. But hey, you wake me up 3 years from now and tell me Carter Bryant is the third best player in this draft. I'm not surprised either. So, let's see. Phil Gap saying Nets owe us a little in the Dennis Schroeder trade. I don't think so, man. I think we good on that one. But it's worth noting that, Masai is pretty close with Adam Silver, with Clutch, and with Sean Marks. So all the players involved are known to each other on a good basis. This is why you have people like Masai Ujiri, man. He's a power broker in the NBA. I mean, could we have had those guys? Yeah. Connections pay off. I agree. Chosen saying I'm cool with Carter at this point. Yep. And I'm totally comfortable with being wrong. And you know what? There's a chance that we get to number 9. Kaman is there, Carter is there, Noah Senge is there, Kasparis is there, and we pick Kasparis. Or we pick Noah Senge, or we pick Nolan Traore, or we pick Ian Gordemon. We'll see. I don't know what the Raptors are doing. Honestly, I used to think I knew what this team was doing every year. And then they picked Grady Dick, and my mind blew. So until they start moving back into my expected realm or until I figure out what they're doing, I can't predict 100% what they're doing. I really like Thomas Sorber. It's Sorber. I really like Thomas Sorber a lot. I don't know if I'd take him at 9, but I might. And I gotta tell you, as impressed as I am with Colin Murray Boyles, and I love Colin Murray Boyles, and just like the prospect, and I've liked him for so long, he's not doing himself any favors in the testing. I would not be surprised if he falls all the way down to 16 or 15. Sorber mentioned, tested very well. Very curious to see how he's doing after the foot injury. I think he put on way too much weight. Seeing him at 265 is ridiculous. Like, this guy was like 225 like 2 years ago, man. Like, he's huge now. And I don't know if that's good weight. I think he just feels slow to me. And yeah. RH77 said, what happened to the live with Nick Thomas? Yeah, I was supposed to do a live with Nick Thomas after the lottery yesterday. I didn't get back to Nick in time, so we are trying to do it now on the weekend. And, we'll also see if Airson wants to come back for one. I've also been talking to a lot more draft experts. We'll see if one of them wants to come on. We'll have plenty of draft content for y'all throughout the month. And hopefully there will be like a couple of videos like breaking down prospects that will be like more like film study. Unfortunately, I've made a couple, and they both got flagged for copyright. So I was just like, do I just release it anyway? Do I create a Patreon and release it on Patreon? I don't know. So we'll see. But I'll find a way around it, and I'll do something with it. Anyways, we're 2 hours and 18 minutes in. I wasn't on the panel today, so I guess I had a couple hours of podcasting in me. I want to thank y'all for these super chats. Very, very generous. Thank you very much to Pepperjack, Gregory, Top, and Noble Venom for these very nice super chats. Appreciate y'all as always. And a big shout out to the 1,000+ people who've been in here, coming in and coming out. That's very huge of you guys. Thank you so much. And typically when we do like afternoon lives of a random variety, we don't usually get like 500, 400 people in here, but it's pretty cool that y'all came through. Hope you liked the video. I hope it was interesting. I hope, my ebbs and flows of various thoughts from the draft to Giannis to team building to Scottie to all of it was hopefully not too disorganized. I'll try to add, I'll add timestamps to this very disorganized video so it'll make it a little bit easier for people who watch it later. I'll talk to y'all later. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your night and enjoy one more round of semifinals or a couple more games of the semifinals tonight. My predictions are Boston, Minnesota. All right, peace.